Chapter 35. Even though they were far away from the Flying Phoenix Pavilion, Zhang Yinluo still could not forget about Gurun. That's right, Big Sister Gu is like a goddess. I really don't know what kind of man is worthy of her. Sun Lang said expressionlessly, gay. Zhang Yinluo turned around and said, what does gay mean? I know that is not a good word. The ranger got impatient. After seeing Gu Weiwei and hearing her confession, he felt a bit annoyed and displeased. So he snorted. Gay, fake, a piao, sworn brothers, broken back, got it? Actually, after Sun Lang said a few words, Zhang Yinluo understood what he meant. The female arrestor looked as if she had learned something new. She mumbled to herself, so many sayings and stories. But the next moment, she understood what was going on. She stomped her feet and said, You said that Sister Gu is a man again. No, you have to make it clear to me today. When she said this, Sun Lang became even more displeased. Damn it, isn't it because of you, little girl, that I have to meet this guy again? Now that he had been confessed to by such a beauty, even if his heart was made of iron, he would still jump 3 times. If it was an acer who didn't have a firm stance, he might have turned gay on the spot. You push me into such an awkward situation, and you still dare to jump up and down in front of me? Damn it, I have decided that after this business is finished, I will let you know what it means to be powerful. Even if you're the legendary spring water jade pot, I will make you dry up. Sun Lang's sinister smile made the female arrestor shiver. She took a few steps forward and said, What are you up to now? The ranger laughed out loud. Overt plot, overt plot. Seeing Zhang Yinluo looking alert, his face changed and he showed a warm smile. I am sure that Gu Weiwei is a man. Want to make a bet? The female arrestor became more alert. What kind of bet? After this matter is over, I will explain everything to you and prove that Gu Weiwei is a man. Sun Lang's smile became even more sincere. You will be convinced. Looking at the female arrestor's distrustful eyes, he shrugged. If you're still not convinced, you can go to the Flying Phoenix Pavilion to verify it yourself. You can do whatever you want, but you'll have to bear the consequences. Seeing how confident he was, Zhang Yinluo's heart skipped a beat. But the next moment, Gu Weiwei's beautiful figure appeared in her mind. She was so beautiful, so beautiful. Even if she did not have any physical contact with her, she could still tell that she had an enchanting figure and a tight and beautiful body. If this beauty was a man, then there would be no women in this world. This idiot, did he have a misunderstanding because of some accident? Humph, he is so arrogant and conceited. He must be a headstrong and self-opinionated person. He believes that once he has set his mind on something, even 9 bulls can't pull him back. This is very similar to father and brother. Bah. How can he be compared to father and brother? Zhang Yinluo looked at the smiling Sun Lang and thought of Gu Weiwei. He got annoyed and said loudly, What about the bet? So what if I lose? So what if I win? If you lose? Sun Lang pondered for a moment. He really didn't know what the stakes of winning were. Anyway, Head Constable Zhang must have learned some life experience before the bet was handed over. Losing some precious water resources meant that Sun Lang's goal had been achieved. However, one thing was another. He really should win something. I haven't thought about it yet. How about this? It's also a condition. You have to promise me one more thing. He continued. Similarly, if you win, you'll be cleared of the debt you owe me. No. Zhang Yinluo subconsciously rejected it. Even she did not understand why she turned it down so directly. Those are 2 things, Sun Lang said in surprise. Oh, aren't you afraid that I will ask you to do something embarrassing? Or maybe you are actually looking forward to that kind of development? For example, let you wear a super short skirt and a super tight shirt in the middle of the night. Let the cold night wind blow at the corner of your skirt, and then let you take deep breaths on the street until your breasts stretch out all the buttons of your shirt. Before he finished speaking, Zhang Yinluo stepped back with her arms over her chest. Her cheeks flushed, and there were tears of anger at the corner of her eyes. If you dare to be so rude, I will go home and tell on you. Okay, you are awesome. I'm just a small ranger and I can't afford to offend you. Sun Lang pursed his lips. Seriously, is it that great to have a family? Zhang Yinluo calmed down and rolled her eyes at him. If you didn't say such strange things, why would I bring up my family? You extorted my Jinghong sword before, and you were usually so rude and talk without thinking, but I didn't bring up my family to deal with you. If you keep your mouth shut, you are actually not bad. As a ranger, you are quite capable, and as a man, you are indeed a little responsible. But once you open your mouth, everything is over. Sun Lang snorted. All right, then let's talk about a serious bet. If I let you win by luck, then whether it's massaging your shoulders or massaging your legs, I'll serve you as a servant for a day. What do you think? Zhang Yinluo was stunned for a moment, and then her eyes lit up. Really? The ranger sneered in his heart and nodded repeatedly. Of course, without any objections. The female arrestor imagined this guy, who is usually so arrogant, waiting on her with a sour face. When she called for tea, he had to serve her tea. When she said that she was hungry, he had to send pastries and fruits to her mouth. As long as she moved her shoulders, he had to obediently massage her shoulders and back. Ah ha ha. So cool, so satisfying, so interesting. Sun Lang looked at the silly smile on the woman's face. How could he not know what she was thinking? Idiot, courting death, idiot. He thought for a moment and decided to hit her while she was down. So, relatively speaking, if you lose, you have to be my servant girl who massages my legs and shoulders for a day. Do you understand? Zhang Yinluo thought for a moment. Compared to the bad words and verbal violence this guy had said to her for half a day, it seemed that even if she were to be his servant for a day, it would not be much worse than now. However, she still glared at Sun Lang. Just a servant. Serving tea and massaging your shoulders is fine. But if you dare to ask me to do other excessive things, I will. You will go home and complain, right? Sun Lang picked his ears. You are not creative at all. Don't worry, I'm not interested in you. He kicked the horse's belly with his leg. The horse understood and began to trot faster. It's getting late. Let's find a place to have some dinner and rest for a while. Then, we will continue our journey. In this way, it will be dark when we arrive at our destination. It's dark and suitable for sneaking in secretly. This woman, if you showed great interest in her, stared at her face, stared at her chest, stared at her legs, and directly expressed the desire of, I want to mate with you, she would definitely think that you were a pervert. But if you didn't show any interest in her and directly said that you were not interested in her at all, she would feel unhappy. This was what it meant to be resentful at a distance and disrespectful at a close distance. She was hard to deal with. Zhang Yinluo was exactly like this. Although I am not as beautiful as my master and sister Gu, I am not ugly. You keep saying that. You're so annoying. She stuck out her tongue at Sun Lang's back and urged her horse to catch up. You still haven't told me. What information did Sister Gu tell you? Where are we going after dinner? Sun Lang laughed. Of course, we are going fishing. Chapter 36. When night fell and the lanterns were lit, the prosperity of Mingzhou City was finally revealed. It was located in the north of the empire, close to the border of the north. During the War of the Heaven's origin, it was the most important town in the north and the capital of the war zone. Although the war brought pain, it also brought progress, communication, and openness. During the War of the Heaven's origin that lasted for decades, the population of foreigners in Mingzhou City soared. They brought not only the tactics and military theories of the Western continent, but also the customs and culture of the Western civilization. Mingzhou City accepted them one by one. The night in this city is like a magnificent picture scroll, slowly unfolding amidst the colorful lights and cheerful songs. The country's border opening and communication with the four barbarians was implemented the fastest and best in the Northern Ming Dynasty. This is because before the border opening order, the people had already communicated with each other for many years. Here, there are people singing in the brothel. There are also people in the music hall and theater. The 3 Yuan restaurant is full of gluttons. There are storytellers singing lyrics. There are drummers playing drums. And in the newly opened Western barbarian restaurants, there are also well-dressed officials and noble women going in and out, looking at the scenery outside the window, clumsily cutting steak with knives and forks, and listening to the melodious sound of violins. The people were mostly curious about new things. If they went to see the scenery of the Western continent, even if it was unappetizing, it would be something to brag about when they came back. Being different and trying new things always made people feel superior. However, Constable Zhang and Ranger Sun did not have such needs and curiosity, because the former had studied in the divine power of flames for a few years and had already seen the most authentic scenery of the Western continent, while the latter, Sun Lang, said that he was not targeting anyone. He just felt that almost all the entertainment in the world, whether it was the Western continent or the Western continent, were garbage. Since they did not have such needs and curiosity, and they had business to attend to, there was no need for them to wander around in the downtown area looking for food. Sun Lang and Zhang Yinluo found a random restaurant and sat down at a table in the corner. The waiter eagerly came to serve them tea. Sun Lang waved his hand and said, "Fried pork, salted duck, steamed shad, and a bowl of dragon whisker noodles." Then he took out a small piece of silver and placed it on the table. After that, go downstairs and buy some black liba and red sausages from the Liwa nation for this lady. Make them thick and black, the longer the better. Drink your tea. Zhang Yinluo glared at him fiercely, then said pleasantly, "Second brother, just give me a crystal osmanthus cake." "Give me some seasonal fruits and vegetables," Sun Lang said seriously. "You'd better drink more water these days." Zhang Yinluo was already somewhat used to Sun Lang's inexplicable crazy words, so he chose to ignore him. Not long after, the dishes were placed on the table. Neither of them wanted a drink, so they ordered a pot of lychee cream. After a while, the cups and plates were empty. Zhang Yinluo couldn't help but ask in a low voice, "Hey, where are we going next?" Sun Lang smiled faintly. "I already said to go fishing to catch a big fish." Zhang Yinluo sighed and patted the table lightly. "Hey, in theory, I'm your employer, but now it's like I'm being led by the nose by you. I'm inexplicably being led around by you, and then inexplicably finding clues, and then inexplicably moving on to the next destination. It's very boring. I'm not your follower. I'm your employer. Employers have the right to inquire about the progress of a task, right?" Sun Lang blinked his eyes, as if saying, "Ah, there's actually such a thing." With a shocked expression, just as Zhang Yinluo was about to explode, he laughed and said, "You can only blame yourself for being too young. You directly gave the Jinghong sword to me after negotiating the conditions during the day. Are you stupid now? The buyer's market has become the seller's market. I'm a boss here, huh?" No matter how Zhang Yinluo beat around the bush and asked questions and even brought up his family, Sun Lang refused to reveal the truth. The two of them spent some time in the restaurant. Sun Lang stood up and waved his hand to let Constable Zhang pay the bill. Zhang Yinluo glared at him and said, "I only ate a portion of osmanthus cake. You were the one who ordered all the fish and meat, so why should I pay?" Sun Lang picked his teeth with a bamboo stick and rolled his eyes. F***CK. Even the most stingy contractor has to pay for food and lodging. I don't need you to sleep with me, so why are you so calculative about paying for a meal? After saying that, the ranger swaggered down the stairs, looking at his back that clearly said, "If you don't pay, I'll eat and dash." Zhang Yinluo was so angry that he stomped his feet. With his grandson's thick skin, he definitely wouldn't feel pressured to eat and dash. However, Constable Zhang, couldn't afford to lose face like this. "Bastard, if it weren't for the fact that I need you now, I would definitely throw you, this freeloader, into jail. F***CK. I don't have to spend any money, and it tastes so good. At the same time, I also get the pleasure of killing a rich dog. When these two pleasures are added together, I get even more pleasures." Sun Lang did not care about Zhang Yinluo's "I want to kill you" gaze, and he felt that he had learned another unique skill when it came to tasting food. After leaving the restaurant and leading the horse, Sun Lang said, "Let's go. There's a deserted yard in Guanyin Alley next to the Dingfeng sect. There's an old locust tree in the yard with luxuriant branches. If we climb over the wall, we will find that house." According to the information accidentally overheard by Gu Weiwei's cowherd, Qin Yu and her employer have mentioned this place many times. I think that this place must be full of evil transactions. Let's sneak in at night and search around. We will definitely find something. It was not until now that Zhang Yinluo heard some useful information. She couldn't help but feel refreshed. No wonder he chose to sneak in at night. This time, it was different from the Xiuquan Hall, where there was no clear target and no information. They could not catch the mastermind as quickly as they did with Zhang Jinyuan, so they had to sneak in secretly. But she suddenly thought of something. Wait, we learn about Qin Yu's secret residence from Zhang Jinyuan, but her mysterious employer destroyed the scene before us and left some misleading clues, trying to distract us. Will we alert her this time and make her take precautions early on? Sun Lang's face stiffened. Damn, why did he suddenly feel that this woman was becoming smarter? He snorted and tried to cover up. So what if she is prepared? The only clue points to this place, and there is no other way. Even if it is a dragon's lair or a tiger's lair, we have to try it. Also, it is better to be prepared. If she is prepared, it means that she has made more preparations, and since she is more prepared, she will leave more flaws. That is true. Zhang Yinluo's eyes flickered as she looked at Sun Lang and whispered, but the danger level is also higher. Maybe what awaits us are swords and traps. Aren't you afraid? Sun Lang laughed as if nothing had happened. If you're not afraid, why should I be? Don't forget, I'm a man and you're a woman. If I'm caught, I'll be stabbed once at most. But your breasts are so big, and you're quite pretty just by looking at your appearance. If you're captured, you'll end up in a tragedy of a secret female investigator. Although your mouth is still so dirty, and I don't understand what you are saying, I know it is not something good. Zhang Yinluo did not lose her temper this time. Instead, she smiled and said, but now you do look like a real ranger. It is not unreasonable that President who values you. Maybe this is what a ranger looks like. Although you are frivolous and full of dirty jokes, you are a man of your word when it comes to business. Sun Lang was not used to this flattery. He snorted and said, you're wrong, Miss Zhang. The reason why I'm not afraid is that I'm a peerless master. Even if all the warriors in Mingzhou City were to band together, most of them would not be able to defeat me. Why should I be afraid? Zhang Yinluo burst into laughter. You? A peerless expert? Are you talking about shameless and sharp-tongued? I've never seen such a shameless and outspoken peerless expert. Moreover, he's even a firearms user. I am not convinced. Are those who use guns not considered experts? Have you heard of a bat demon named Alcatraz? He is known as the Old Man with 2 guns. It was a cool night with a cool breeze. The night's scenery was picturesque. Sun Lang and Zhang Yinluo rode on their horses, chatting as they hurried to their destination. Mingzhou City's night scenery was prosperous and peaceful, but in the darkness, someone had already arranged everything, waiting for the 2 reckless fellows to walk into the trap. Chapter 37. They ran along the East Main Street, turned around the Song Family Bridge, passed through a few secluded alleys and streets, and gradually approached the Dingfeng sect. Unlike the busy night market, this was the dark side of the city. The poor but dutiful, the poor but not dutiful, and the not poor but not dutiful. These 3 types of people lived in this place, either silently enduring, seeking a living, or venting their malice. Everyone had to live, but the way they lived and the ending was very different. It was very quiet here. Because of the poverty, people were not willing to turn on the lights at night. There was no entertainment, so they had to go to bed early and get up before dawn to work for a living. In order not to wake up the sleeping people, Sun Lang and Zhang Yinluo had already found a place to leave the horses and slowly walk towards their destination. The ranger stayed silent and thought of what Gu Weiwei had said to him. Even if you want to rebel or massacre Mingzhou City, I will not hesitate to accompany you. I will tell you the biggest secrets, let alone such a small matter. It's up to you to make a decision. If you just want to find the female cat burglar and complete this mission, then I can provide you with all the information about her so that you can come and cause trouble and finish the job beautifully. But everything has its pros and cons. It will be fast, but there will be no sense of accomplishment or fun. You're already past that age, right? If you want to have some fun and play around, Then you can go to a residence in Guanyin Alley next to the Fixed Wind sect. The mastermind behind the scenes plans to lure you there and then crush you with a thunderbolt. Isn't that very fun? All right, I can't hide anything from you. Apart from that, I have my own considerations about this matter. The criminals who captured Chinyu are just puppets controlled and used by others. You can touch them all, but you will definitely attract the attention of the mastermind behind them. If you make too much of a fuss, it will be impossible for you to not expose your identity. If you're not ready to start a one-on-one fight with this country, then try to keep a low profile. It would be best if you use your powerful personal charm and personal ability to pull them to our side. Hey, speaking of this, I suddenly thought of something. When the time is right, you can launch a unified war and conquer the world. If you capture a powerful man, you can make him surrender through brainwashing, instigating defection, threatening with poison, and mind control. If you're too lazy to go through the trouble, just kill him. As for the women, you can personally persuade them to surrender. If they don't agree, gently and lovingly persuade them to surrender. Don't worry, with your charisma as the foundation, I'll create a persuasion process for you. In 3 days, even the most loyal and unyielding warrior will become a sow shaking its butt in front of you. Hee, what do you say? It hurts, don't hit my head. So, that was probably it. So, a trap is actually a very scary species. Although there are some idiotic, gay-inclined humans who clamor about how a trap won't get pregnant no matter what. So it's very safe and reassuring. Because they're both boys, they know how to make their boyfriends feel more comfortable and other perverted words. But please don't forget that a trap is a creature that's biologically male, but psychologically close to a female. Although it may appear to possess the easygoing nature of a boy and the gentle temperament of a girl, please allow me to point out a philosophical principle that has been established since ancient times. Everything in this world is a unity of opposites. In other words, sometimes a trap would have the advantages of both men and women, but it was also very likely that it would have the disadvantages of both. It might have the disdain for moral integrity and bottom line of men, as well as the nature of lust, but it might also have the ruthless trait of a woman's heart. Think about it. The nature of a man who had extremely low moral integrity and could easily break through the bottom line, and the nature of a woman who would become ruthless and decisive once she broke through the bottom line and the bottom line. When these two combined in the body of a trap, it would give birth to a terrifying creature that would do earth-shattering things the moment it turned evil. Sun Lang believed that Gu Weiwei was a typical example of this. It was specifically shown by the plan she had just proposed. When Uncle Sun was thinking about revenge by chopping you all to death and letting this country perish, this trap was seriously thinking about a better plan of turning the whole world into a meat toy. Her bottomless brain seemed to be filled with extremely dense, evil power of Gul'dan, which was enough to infect all the orcs in Draenor and turn them into second-brother subordinates. Her plan was so crazy that a simple and honest man like Sun Lang could not listen to it at all. Damn it, I am not a human-shaped massage stick. Why should I serve a group of stupid women? Sun Lang thought for a moment and thought, if that is the case, then let's play. Although Mushroom is being secretive, she must be hoping that I will be merciful. She seems to be very interested in the forces that hired and kidnapped Chinyu. Does she want to take them under her command? Does she want to annex and control the other party's forces? Wait, don't tell me she wants to do that kind of thing. Goodness, this is her personal privacy and hobby. It has nothing to do with me. Also, I should be happy to see it happen. It is much better for this trap to play with women than to stare at my lower body every day. Yes, that was probably the case. If that is the case, then let's help her. Although I don't need her help in the future, things are unpredictable. Maybe one day I will need her help. She has helped me, so I should repay her. Also, it is not a bad thing for me if her forces expand and strengthen. If that is the case, then the action plan is set. When the two of us were searching for clues, we fell into the trap that the other party had planned. When the other party sneered, I asked the other party unwillingly, wanting to know the ins and outs of the matter. If the other party gives me face, then I will wait for her to finish speaking before I take action. If she doesn't have the self-restraint of a villain and doesn't understand the aesthetics of villains, then I will have to take action immediately and teach her some lessons. I see that old locust tree. As expected of a talented disciple of the Vulture Spirit Palace and a genius from a big family, his eyesight is really good. Zhang Yinluo raised his hand and pointed at the vaguely visible darkness in front of him. It was indeed a tree with luxuriant branches and leaves. It was only a few hundred steps away from here. The surroundings were dark and silent. Zhang Yinluo lowered his voice and whispered, "What is the plan later?" Sun Lang expressionlessly took out a small iron can from his pocket. Zhang Yinluo's expression became very subtle. "Do we have to use this kind of thing? This is not like the time at the embroidery hall. At that time, our goal was to find Zhang Jianyuan, so after we forced them out, we could find the target directly. This time is different. We don't know who is inside at all, and the area inside is very large. Is this thing enough for us to use?" The ranger sighed. "You are so picky. Since you don't want them to suffer this kind of pain, then let's set a fire and let them go on their way quickly." "You can't set a fire either," Zhang Yinluo said in a low voice. "Look at the surroundings. The terrain is low and the houses are dense. Moreover, there are many thatch houses and most of them are poor people. If you set a fire and the fire spreads, the consequences will be unimaginable. Moreover, we can't be completely sure that the person we're looking for is inside. Moreover, what if Qin Yu is inside? She will be burned alive by you." She carefully thought about the countermeasures. "We need to think of a safe way. It's all your fault. You kept provoking me along the way, but you didn't think about the proper business. I thought you had a card up your sleeve. The most fundamental problem now is that we know very little about the situation in the small courtyard. The number of patrols, the number of people, whether there are big fish, whether they're hostages, we don't know anything, so..." Sun Lang continued. "So, we need to ask a few kind friends first, right?" Zhang Yinluo didn't raise his head and said, "Yes, but we need to plan carefully. After all, if we want to kidnap someone, we have to go deep into the courtyard. If we are careless, they will be alerted, they won't." The ranger's voice was a little doubtful and depressed. "They came out by themselves." "What?" Before Zhang Yinluo had time to ask, his expression suddenly changed. His right hand pressed the hilt of his sword and he raised his head. As far as the eye could see, on the deserted street, 7 or 8 people in black slowly surrounded the two of them. They were looking at them with cold eyes, as if they were looking at 2 dead bodies. The female arrestor raised her real chi and her body tensed up. In an instant, she adjusted her physical condition to the best state. It was time for a fight. Sun Lang was still looking at the 2 sides and then slowly took out the fire Kylan. At this moment, he was a little confused. Damn, why didn't they play by the rules? Chapter 38. What's going on? Sun Lang frowned. Theoretically speaking, since they know we're coming, shouldn't the best place to set up an ambush be in their lair? Dig a trap, bury some iron caltrops, equip the crossbow, and ambush some spearmen. Once you're done, bury hundreds of kilograms of explosives under the courtyard. Zhang Yinluo broke out in a cold sweat. Should I be glad that they're not as insidious as you? I think these people should be setting up a defense outside and happen to see us. Who cares? They're just in time. The fire Kirin hovered in Sun Lang's hand a few times. He narrowed his eyes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'll kill 6 at noon, and you take care of the remaining 2. I want them alive. Hey! Zhang Yinluo stopped him in a low voice. Don't use guns unless you have no other choice. If the enemies in Guanyin Alley haven't discovered us, shooting will expose them and alert them. So, don't use guns unless you have no other choice. Get rid of them quickly and quietly. What do you think? No problem, right? Sun Lang thought for a moment and nodded. Then, he put away the fire Kirin. You're the employer. You have a final say. Now you're finally aware of this. Zhang Yinluo smiled. At this moment, she was surrounded. Although the ranger beside her did not seem very reliable, for some reason, he still gave her a sense of security that she was not fighting alone. She moved her fingers and slowly clenched the hilt of her long saber. Get ready. At this moment, Sun Lang suddenly handed over a sword. The body of the sword was long and narrow, and the guard of the sword was like a flying wing. It was the Imperial Army's Jinghong sword. Facing Zhang Yinluo's gaze, the ranger yawned. What are you looking at? I'll lend it to you first. It's good that you don't want to use external objects to disturb your state of mind, but in times of crisis, use it without hesitation. Don't think of doing stupid things like breaking through at the last minute. Zhang Yinluo's eyes flickered, and he was somewhat moved. In such a dangerous situation, he actually did not hesitate to return the startled swan sword to him. In a situation where he was one against many, the effect of the startled swan sword's agility and swiftness could even turn the tide of the battle, greatly increasing his chances of victory. Similarly, him handing over the startled swan sword meant that his own safety factor would be greatly reduced. But his indifferent look and calm eyes gave the female arrestor a sense of security. Although she had never seen him fight in the truest sense, now that she thought about it, this ranger was indeed shrouded in a mysterious aura. The hero of Tianyuan, Hu Shouxin, thought highly of him. He also had a deep friendship with Sister Gu, who was a fairy who descended from heaven. He was even able to get his hands on a great fire Kirin spear personally made by Taoist Master Ma. It should be known that this kind of divine weapon was hard to find in the secular world. Even with her family's wealth and connections, it was difficult to get her hands on it easily. Now that she thought about it, this guy was indeed quite mysterious. She did not know how many secrets he was hiding. Perhaps he was really very powerful. Thinking of this, Zhang Yinluo took the Jinghong sword and snorted. Male chauvinist, she curled her lips and said, "Can you do it empty-handed? Do you want me to lend you my sword?" Although it's not a divine weapon, it's still a good sword that has been tempered thousands of times. If you try to be brave when you get into a dangerous situation and can't beat them, don't expect me to save you. Are you kidding? Sun Lang looked up to the sky and laughed. His laughter contained the confidence of not being afraid of tens of thousands of people and the pride of thousands of soldiers. He said loudly, "Head Constable Zhang, you'd better worry about yourself." Surrounded by strong enemies, she was trapped in a tight encirclement. She stood side by side with her only comrade, laughing heartily and tearing each other down. Zhang Yinluo felt the blood in her body gradually heating up, and her strong fighting spirit continued to beat. She took a deep breath and pulled out the startling sword and the saber at her waist. Just as she was about to attack, she heard the sound of wind swaying and a white shadow flashed. Sun Lang, who was beside her, had already leaped out. So fast, Zhang Yinluo was slightly surprised. If that's the case, I can't fall behind. At this moment, she suddenly realized that the great ranger's son, who was laughing and full of pride, did not rush to the enemy with the momentum of Mount Tai. Instead, he dodged to the side and leaned against a poplar tree by the roadside. He waved at her and waved his fist in a soft voice. "Miss Zhang, Daddy." Zhang Yinluo widened her eyes and shouted, "Me? Alone? Aren't you going to help me? How can I help you? You don't allow me to use a pistol." Sun Lang picked his nose and waved his hand. "I didn't bring a silencer, so you'll have to work hard. Don't worry. You said yourself that you can use a gun if you have no other choice, so I'll help you when you're in danger. You won't be in any danger, so don't worry. But please note that defeating all the enemies alone without the assistance of a handsome companion is an extra task. If you complete it, you could get a hidden reward and unlock an achievement." "What the hell are you doing?" Zhang Yinluo already had a Spartan tendency. "Do you only know how to use firearms? Haven't you practiced martial arts and weapons?" "Of course not, but you actually want a soldier who is proficient in long-range attacks to fight close combat with a healer like you. Do you have any humanity?" Sun Lang stretched and waved his hand. "If I fight, I'm afraid it'll affect the city's appearance, and it'll easily dirty my hands and clothes. Can you help me wash them when we get back?" Head Constable Zhang was about to go crazy. "Don't drop the ball at this critical moment and say something that I don't understand. No matter what, hurry up and help me." If the enemy over there is alerted and a large number of troops are attracted, you still need to learn more. You see, as a detective and an assistant, I'm on par with Sherlock Holmes in terms of handsomeness, wit, and talent. Plus, I can punch the brains out of that cigarette addict with one punch. As for you, as an assistant, the difference between you and Watson is like the difference between a blind monk discovering a blind spot and Watson discovering a blind spot. Sun Lang sighed. You see, since these brothers surrounded us until now, how much nonsense have we talked, and how many pairs of crosstalks have we performed? They didn't send any signals or send anyone to warn us. They just looked at us expressionlessly like we were in the background. They're even more dedicated than the extras. What does this mean? The eyes of the men in black who surrounded the two moved slightly. Zhang Yinluo looked thoughtful. He stared at him and said, "What does it mean?" Sun Lang rolled his eyes. They took the initiative to show up. They didn't speak. They didn't threaten. They didn't warn us. And there were no footsteps coming from there. There was no large number of troops rushing here. Of course, it means that these brothers were sent by their boss. Plus, their mission is to delay us. The longer they delay us, the better. So if you don't fight now, the people over there will all run away. Zhang Yinluo's expression changed. But when the men in black heard him, they immediately took out their swords and sabers. With a low growl, they rushed toward the two of them. The female constable brandished her sword and saber with both hands. Her saber technique was heavy and her sword light. She intercepted the men in black and began to fight. She couldn't believe that this bastard ranger was reliable. This mischievous fellow. She gritted her teeth, thinking about how to quickly defeat all 8 of them. However, as the swords and sabers clashed, the wind howled. The young girl suddenly realized that it wasn't her who had intercepted the black-clothed men, but the black-clothed men who had intercepted her. Only 3 of the black-robed men surrounded her in the middle, using defense and delaying tactics to surround her. The remaining 5 men, on the other hand, were charging towards Sun Lang aggressively. F***CK, you extras who don't even have names. You're really the life of extras. Zhang Yinluo heard Sun Lang yelling. Why are you coming at me? Isn't it good to be alive? Look at that woman over there. Her breasts are so big. If you capture her, you'll definitely get special CG and H scenes. You guys actually left the normal difficulty and went straight to the hell difficulty. I'm really worried for you guys. While Zhang Yinluo was fighting, she still had time to take a peek. She saw that the 5 men in black were swift and fierce. Each of their moves were aimed at Sun Lang's vital points. They chased after Sun Lang and slashed unceasingly. But the ranger relied on his agility to dodge here and there. He did not fight back. He only cared about running around. Zhang Yinluo secretly laughed in her heart and loudly said, "Remember, don't shoot unless you have no other choice." Sun Lang dodged a few more slashes. He saw that one of the men was ruthless and kept stabbing him. It seemed that he thought that Sun Lang was a weakling who only knew how to use firearms and was only good at martial arts. The ranger dodged a few more slashes. Seeing that the man wanted a yard after taking an inch, he shouted angrily, "F***CK, you're not done yet, are you?" The blade of the sun ran, slashed at him. Sun Lang stopped and suddenly grabbed the back of the blade with his right hand. With a gentle twist, the long blade broke into pieces. The invincible sword Qi rushed into the assassin's right arm along the handle of the blade. In an instant, the man in black felt that there were countless small blades constantly twisting in his body. The pain was like death by 1,000 cuts. Even a well-trained assassin couldn't bear it. He was just about to open his mouth and scream, but Sun Lang had already pressed his head down and smashed his head against the wall by the roadside. Seeing that the assassin's head was about to turn into a rotten watermelon, Sun Lang suddenly remembered the problem of destroying the city's appearance and being covered in blood. He subconsciously controlled his strength. With a muffled sound, the head in his hand hit the wall solidly. It didn't shatter or crack. The invincible force was transmitted to the wall and blasted out a small hole. Dense cracks spread out like a spider web. The assassin's head was heavily hit, and he fainted on the spot. Sun Lang retracted his hand and looked at his right hand. Then he looked at the assassin who had fainted and whose head didn't shatter. Then he looked at the hole in the wall and said, "Ah." At this time, Zhang Yinluo, who had killed one of the assassins, looked back and happened to see Sun Lang's subtle smile slowly blooming with joy. Why did this guy have a happy expression that said, F***CK? It can be done like this. Chapter 39. So how did you do it? Zhang Yinluo looked at the men in black lying on the ground and couldn't help but shudder. These ruthless killers were all lying on the ground, and they all had one thing in common. They were all unconscious. There were 8 deep pits on the ground and walls, and the surrounding walls and roads were cracked like a spider web, as if they had been hit by a hammer. Well, the culprit pondered for a while and said in a low voice, "Actually, when I pressed their heads, a button prompt suddenly appeared above their heads. Sometimes it was a Q key, sometimes it was a space key, sometimes it was a black key, and sometimes it was a Sujisaki key. I pressed them a few times, and they became like this. I'm also quite puzzled. You should be more serious when you lie." Zhang Yinluo sheathed the Jinghong sword. She didn't know why, but she felt that the Jinghong sword was a little strange today. The flow of her vital energy and the feeling of controlling it was smoother than before. It seemed that her compatibility with the Jinghong sword had increased by 10%. She looked at the sloppy Sun Lang again and vaguely sensed something. But before she could ask, Sun Lang left with a calm face. "Let's go." For some reason, after getting used to his usual sloppy appearance, Zhang Yinluo felt that the paladin's calm expression with a hint of seriousness at this time was extraordinarily oppressive. She looked back and saw the cold moon and cold wind. The unconscious men in black were lying on the ground, but none of them were dead. They were all knocked unconscious in a very exaggerated way by their heads. He had been using firearms, he had never wanted to fight with others, he had never hurt anyone, and he had always emphasized that she should not have any physical contact with him. He could judge the opponent's martial arts, physical condition, and gender through the slash marks of the sword. He had a close relationship with a beautiful and wealthy sister. There were more and more doubts and mysteries. Zhang Yinluo faintly realized that the young paladin she met last night and shamelessly clung to today might be a very powerful guy. Moreover, there must be some heavy past and story that made him not want to fight with others, making him keep a distance from all women. Perhaps it was a very sad and beautiful love story. Zhang Yinluo looked at Sun Lang's back as he jogged to catch up with him while imagining an earth-shattering story. But what she didn't know was that the expressionless ranger in front of her was secretly clenching his fists. Yes, motherfucker, that's great. It was indeed effective. This was a long period of training. Countless good swords that I had turned into scraps. And the Jinghong sword that he obtained today. 2 years ago, when he had just left the great desolate mountain, everything he touched would explode. His sword chi went out of control and flowed freely. He didn't even know how to walk anymore. All that was left in his body was his battle instincts. Every time he raised his hand, it was as if he was ready to kill. After 2 years of hard work, he was slowly getting results. In terms of control, he had made great progress. "Mom, I don't have to worry that I can punch someone and make their flesh and blood splatter everywhere. Motherfucker, this style has finally changed from the death space to the king of fighters. And the most importantly, the power of the great sword could be controlled. Theoretically, the power of the great health could also be controlled, as long as he kept training, using, and He suddenly stopped and looked at his right hand. Over the past 2 years, he had broken many good swords before he could further control the surging and roaring sword chi to the point where he could push someone's head against the wall and transfer the excess force to the wall. How many times did he have to break in order to practice the power of the great health to the level of floodgate control button? Thinking of this, for some reason, Sun Lang suddenly turned around and silently glanced at Zhang Yinluo. The female arrestor suddenly felt a chill down her spine. Her female sixth sense clearly detected great malice. She took a few steps back and stammered, "Wh." Sun Lang turned his head back as if nothing had happened and said, "Nothing. Don't just leave your words hanging. I feel very uneasy," Zhang Yinluo shouted. "And those people who were knocked out just now, aren't you going to interrogate them?" Sun Lang thought to himself, "Interrogate? Since the mastermind wanted to lure us here and catch us all in one fell swoop, she must have set a trap here. Sending these 8 people to besiege us was also her plan. She wanted us to think that the other party sent these people to delay us, so they must be trying to seize the opportunity to escape. They must be destroying important information, transferring the hostages, and then escaping. If we don't chase after them quickly, it will be too late, and so on. Then, in our anxiety, we would definitely chase after them quickly, and in our panic, we would fall into the trap she had set in advance. She was a scheming person, but unfortunately, God's plans are different. She would never have guessed that Trapgu was on my side. Since that's the case, I will beat her at her own game and give her a big surprise. However, compared to this, there was indeed another matter that was more important. This power of great health was simply a huge problem for me. I hated sex, very much so. If this went on, not to mention an ordinary relationship, even if I went to visit a prostitute, someone would die. It was simply too distressing. Therefore, I decided that I must train the power of great health to the point where I could freely control it. However, controlling the power of the great sword requires countless swings and control of the sword, which requires countless swords. Recently, it has been the Imperial Army's turn to practice. If I want to control the power of health, how many cauldrons will I need? I mean, warm-hearted female volunteers? Trap, Gu has hit the nail on the head. Don't tell me that the handsome me really has to go to the brothel to comfort those lonely ladies and madams? As he pondered, Sun Lang silently glanced at Zhang Yinluo again. Apart from her personality, her figure and looks are actually quite good, especially her breasts, which are a plus. Wait, what am I thinking? That's why you've been sizing me up since the beginning. What are you trying to do? I feel that your gaze is very dangerous. Zhang Yinluo shouted anxiously. Let's go quickly. You just said that the group of men in black is only here to delay us. If we don't chase after them, the enemies will all run away. Perhaps Sun Lang's gaze was too intimidating and invasive, but Zhang Yinluo's female instincts made her feel an extreme sense of danger. After she finished speaking in a slight panic, she pulled out her Jinghong sword and long saber, passed by Sun Lang, and ran into the alley. The old locust tree that protruded out of the wall was already in front of them, but the surroundings were deathly silent. There were no guards guarding the door, no ambush as if they were facing a great enemy, and not even a trace of a living person. It was like a deserted house that had been uninhabited for a long time. It was desolate and deathly silent. Occasionally, a cool breeze would blow, making one feel bone-chilling cold. At this time and place, it added a touch of eeriness, making one shudder. When Sun Lang approached with a thoughtful expression, Zhang Yinluo was still standing in front of the tightly shut door, her expression grave and hesitant. Even if she was a highly skilled woman, there was still a weak nature in her bones. She might not be afraid of a knife or gun on the surface, but in the face of an unknown enemy in a dark atmosphere, it was indeed a little difficult to cope with an unknown enemy in a dark atmosphere. She hesitated for a moment and said softly, "Hey, it seems like there's no one here. What should we do? Did they set up an ambush? Could they be hiding in the dark, preparing to launch a sneak attack on us?" The female arrestor bit her lip and looked at Sun Lang, who seemed to be playing dumb. She asked in a low voice, "How many cans of herring did you bring? Why don't we throw a few cans in and see?" Chapter 40. The female arrestor bit her lip and looked at Sun Lang, who seemed to be playing dumb. She asked in a low voice, "How many cans of herring did you bring? Why don't you throw a few cans in first?" Sun Lang was stunned for a moment. Then he felt relieved. "A few cans? You're really a decisive person, but I don't have much left. According to the New Year's summoning rules, you can only bring a total of 10 grenades and special grenades. This is a basic rule. But since you're planning to open the door to a new world, I'll give it to you as well. He took out a small iron can. I threw 2 cans at Shochen Hall and gave one to Zhang Jianyuan as a souvenir. There are still 2 grenades left. I mean the canned herring. I'll give this to you for free. Zhang Yinluo was shocked and hurriedly retreated. I don't want it. Take this thing away. How can you be so ungrateful? Sun Lang frowned. All the brothers in the underworld know that B-84 costs 300 yuan to buy. I'm giving you one for free, and you're still being picky? I didn't ask you to give it to me. I asked you to throw it in. Throw it in. The ranger shook his head. My friend, true knowledge comes from practice. Since you want to learn this way, you have to throw it in yourself. Don't underestimate this iron can. You have to know that the reason why a weapon is great is not because it's powerful, but because ordinary people can use it easily. This canned herring is a good medicine to learn from past mistakes and avoid future ones. It can cure illnesses and improve relations between neighbors. He held the can of herring in his hand and said earnestly, think about it. If you have a conflict with your neighbor, or if you have a grudge against someone, what will you do? Using knives and guns would not only hurt the relationship between the 2 parties, but they might not even be able to win the fight. Even if they could win, they would most likely have to go to the police station. At that time, they would need canned herring. You can buy an alcohol lamp, make a small holder, calculate the time that the other party will return home, and then light it to heat up. When the can is heated up, the liquid gas inside will expand, and when it reaches its limit, it will explode. The hot canned herring and the warm juice will bloom beautifully. In this way, it won't hurt anyone, won't dirty your hands, and won't leave any clues. You can use it to take revenge on your enemies. Take revenge on stupid companies. Take revenge on uncultured people. Zhang Yinluo looked at him with cold eyes. You are the scum of the human world. Amateus Buddha, how can you accuse me? Sun Lang's eyes widened. Who was the one who said she wanted to throw in a few cans of herring? Just 1 jar was enough to make the friends of the embroidery hall feel disgusted for 3 months. You actually want to throw a few jars? You are so inhumane, and you still have the face to criticize me. I can't out-talk you, okay? Zhang Yinluo shouted, lifted his sword, and kicked the door open. He turned back and said fiercely, if I die in there, my family will not let you off. Indeed, his temper was a bit bad, and he was impatient. He tended to be arrogant, but to some extent, his stubbornness was a plus point. For example, with tears in his eyes and a red face, he clenched his teeth and puffed up his cheeks and said, humph. I'm not wet. Actually, it was quite interesting to think about it. He couldn't stand being teased, so it was quite interesting to see him lose his temper. Sun Lang looked at the back of head Constable Zhang and nodded repeatedly. OF*CK, what am I thinking again? But this guy seems to owe me a favor. If I ask her to cooperate with my treatment, will she agree? Sun Lang thought and followed him into the small courtyard. Zhang Yinluo protected himself with his sword and saber and put on a defensive posture. However, the expected arrows, poisonous darts, and hard crossbows did not come. The surroundings were still dead silent, and there was not a single person in sight. While Zhang Yinluo was suspicious, Sun Lang had already passed through the front yard and walked to the flower hall. He shouted as he walked, Amateus Buddha, I am the escort Taoist of the Shuntong Escort Agency. I'm here to deliver water to the benefactors. Do you want to die? Zhang Yinluo was startled and hurried to follow him. She ran to Sun Lang's side and vigilantly looked around. However, there was still silence, and there was not a single person in sight. The female constable first heaved a sigh of relief, and then hurriedly said, Have they all run away? It's all your fault. You wasted so much time. Don't worry, don't worry. The corners of Sun Lang's mouth curled up into a smile. It's a moonless and windy night, a day of murder and arson. This godforsaken place is simply the best place to silence someone. We've chased her for so long. How could she not have any killing intent? We're wasting time, but she's the one who's anxious. But there's really no one here. So how does she want to deal with us? Could it be that she really buried hundreds of kilograms of explosives underground? The female constable was startled. Really? Don't scare me. In any case, she had studied in the Lihua nation. The Lihua nation was a theocracy where religion and politics were united. They worshipped the spirit of fire, and their firearms were the best in the world. As an exchange student in Russia, she naturally had a deep understanding of the flame aesthetics of the Lihua nation. Big is good, caliber is justice, and explosion is art. The power of hundreds of kilograms of explosives underground was enough to blow up the entire yard into the sky. Even if there were 10 Zhang Luo, it would probably be difficult for them to escape. Looking at her worried expression, Sun Lang smiled and said, "Don't worry. Hundreds of kilograms of explosives is not a small number. Who could get it easily? And with such a big explosion, wouldn't it be more eye-catching? If a female cat burglar was taken away for no reason, the Sixth Fan School would definitely be too lazy to care. But if there were hundreds of kilograms of explosives in the city, it would destroy countless houses. The director of your police station would have to investigate the case anxiously. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to keep his job." Zhang Yinluo thought about it. It was indeed reasonable. Thinking of the sanctimonious appearance of the chief, Constable Liang Bufan, and the dirty things he did in private, she couldn't help but sigh. She actually couldn't refute Sun Lang's words. Sun Lang peeked at the female constable's expression and nodded. Good. Although she's a little stubborn, she's not hopeless. She can be saved, as long as her character can be saved. So what have I been thinking from the beginning until now? Do I really want to turn her into a human cauldron? Is it okay? Although her breasts are big, is it really okay? All right, calm down. Sun Lang, listen, this is just a kind of psychological inertia. Just like when babies and cubs are just born, they will have a sense of intimacy with the first creature they see. Just like when a transmigrator sees the first beautiful girl after transmigrating, he will involuntarily list her as the first sex toy in his harem. So, just now, when you came to the conclusion that the power of great health can also be controlled through postnatal training, you will have an inexplicable desire for the girl next to you. But this is just a kind of psychological inertia. Don't think too much. Although her breasts are indeed big, her temper is really bad, and her family is also considered to be big. It's not good to make a scene, and it's easy to expose yourself. So calm down first. While the paladin was struggling with his thoughts, he bypassed the screen and walked to the back. The two passed through the flower hall, passed through the corridor, and came to the backyard. Under the moonlight, they saw that the ground was full of fallen leaves and weeds. It seemed that no one had lived here for a long time, and it had not been taken care of for a long time. Stepping on the thick grass, Zhang Yinluo and Sun Lang looked for clues and traces of the enemy. There was a pavilion, a stone table, and a dry pool. The mud exuded a foul smell. Suddenly, Zhang Yinluo's eyes lit up. She pointed at the stone table and said, "There's something strange here. There are fallen leaves, dead branches, and weeds everywhere. But this stone table and stone chair look very clean. There must be a problem." At this time, Sun Lang was distracted. In the paladin's eyes, the safety of a female cat burglar was not worth mentioning compared to his personal problems. So he didn't hear Zhang Yinluo's words. The female constable had been led by the nose by Sun Lang for the whole day. She didn't use any of the investigation and case-solving knowledge that she had learned in the past. All the difficult problems were solved by this paladin with an inexplicable, unorthodox method. Although she didn't say anything, she was angry in her heart. This time, it was finally time to show off. She saw that Sun Lang did not say anything against it. So she quickly walked to the side of the stone table, preparing to carefully check if there were any hidden mechanisms or secret passages. In an instant, the floor around the stone table collapsed with a loud bang. The female constable lost her footing and fell down involuntarily. She screamed, but her body reacted instinctively. She stabbed the Jinghong sword in her right hand horizontally, trying to stab it into the wall to gain a foothold. However, the surrounding wall was made of stainless steel and was coated with grease. The Jinghong sword was also a soft sword, so she couldn't stab it in. A trace of despair flashed in her eyes. Could it be? Sun Lang, who was distracted, heard Zhang Yinluo's scream and suddenly came back to his senses. In an instant, the paladin's figure flashed past like an eagle. His body was as fast as lightning, and he grabbed Zhang Yinluo's left arm and pulled her out of the trap. But it wasn't over yet. Just as Zhang Yinluo fell into the trap, the quiet garden suddenly became a land of death. Countless crossbows, poisonous darts, and iron arrows flew like a storm, covering almost every corner of the garden. Sun Lang held Zhang Yinluo, who was still in shock, in his arms. His eyes were as calm as an ancient well. His body shuttled through the rain of arrows, and his left hand kept deflecting the hidden weapons that were shot at him. He actually rushed out of the barrage of arrows. The wind whistled in her ears. Zhang Yinluo raised her head, but she could only see the calm face of the other party. It was as if no danger could affect him at all. Her heart gradually calmed down, as if she had found a sturdy ship in the midst of a raging tsunami. Even if the waves were raging, there was no need to worry. Suddenly, she was shocked by her own thoughts. Looking around, she saw that Sun Lang had already rushed into the parlor with her in his arms. There was no danger around. Her face was a little red, and she whispered, "Put me down. F******. Looks like I won't be able to forget the kung fu from the battlefield for a while." Sun Lang had just charged through the rain of arrows unscathed. For a moment, he thought of the old days on the battlefield. Hearing Zhang Yinluo's low cry and feeling the body as soft as jade twisting uneasily in his arms, he finally came back to his senses. Then, he saw the female constable in his arms, whose face was a little red. Apart from a shy face that said, "Put me down. How long do you want to hold me?" She didn't seem to have any other reaction. Her whole body didn't twitch, her eyes didn't turn white, and there was no strange liquid leaking from below. Chapter 41. He reached out his hand and patted it gently. Once. No reaction. He reached out his hand and patted it gently. Twice. Still no reaction. He reached out his hand and patted it gently. Nipples. There was a reaction. He roared like a lion from Hudong. "Where are you planning to stretch your claws?" Miss Zhang Yinluo's figure was very good, especially her breasts. The towering and beautiful shape emphasized her huge presence, and she proudly attracted the attention of men. This was the real deal. It was neither man-made nor silicone, nor was it PAD. Obviously, a person with such a pair of real, beautiful, and full breasts was definitely not a man. Sun Lang silently bit his finger and stared at Zhang Yinluo. He looked her up and down, and the light in his eyes became brighter and brighter. "I, Sun Lang, am a transmigrator, a retired veteran, an armed civilian, and a wanderer driven by interest. I hate it very much. It's not because I don't like girls, but because there's a problem with my ability. A part of the power of the great sword in my body has mutated into the power of sex. This directly causes any woman's body to become very beep, beep, and beep. You guys, don't think that this is an enviable ability. Let me tell you, you guys are too young, too young. This troublesome ability directly caused me to lose the right to help old grannies cross the road. I also lost the right to have a pure relationship with the opposite sex. I can't touch any woman, otherwise it will cause trouble. As a man, my desires and physical needs can only be solved by self-casting. I even lost the right to have sex, and even the right to spend money in brothels to have a pure transaction with big sisters. Why is this? Because I am afraid. I will die. But now, it seems that there is hope. It seems to be normal. It seems to have lost its effect. The strange curse that had troubled him for 2 years had actually lost its effect. Sun Lang was so excited that he completely ignored the fact that he had used the hand of justice to attack the female cat burglar. His heart was filled with thoughts like, "I've finally become a king perfect creature." His breathing became heavier, but he still tried his best to suppress his ecstasy. "Wait a minute, don't panic. Don't panic. This may be an exception, or it may be a special case. Let us examine it again in the spirit of scientific rigor. Another specimen. Let's try it on another woman. Now is the time. Right away. He suddenly raised his head, and the glint in his eyes made Zhang Yinluo take 2 steps back in fright. What do you want to do? Sun Lang flipped his hair and revealed a disgustingly handsome, charming smile. He chuckled and said, "Wait a moment. I have some personal matters to attend to." Now, Zhang Yinluo was shocked. "You won't leave me here alone? You. Don't worry." Sun Lang gave him a thumbs up and blinked his right eye. "I attach great importance to Miss Yinluo's personal safety. I will definitely not go far. If you are in danger, I will return to your side immediately." Even the way he addressed himself had changed. "Your smile looks so disgusting. What happened to you?" Before Zhang Yinluo could protest, Sun Lang rushed out of the courtyard like a whirlwind. He jumped to the top of the wall, and his eyes flashed with a mysterious light. He closed his eyes and used his heart to feel, meditate, and search. He followed the guidance of his heart. Beautiful girl, beautiful girl, beautiful girl, beautiful girl. Found her. That direction. It seemed like he had failed. Su Qingwan, who was dressed in black and monitoring the courtyard from a small building in the distance, sighed softly. That scheming paladin was investigating this matter. He had tried to get close to Miss and make use of her before, but he was so resourceful that he traced all the way here. He was really a big trouble and couldn't be left alive. However, Miss Zhang beside him was a trouble. If they were killed together, it would definitely arouse the anger of the Zhang family in Mingzhou and lead to endless troubles. Therefore, she carefully set up a trap. After trapping Zhang Yinluo in the trap chamber, she shot the paladin into a hornet's nest with countless traps and hidden weapons. However, something seemed to have happened. She didn't know whether the trap was activated in advance or not, so the paladin easily avoided it. Since that's the case, then I'll do it myself. Anyone who can threaten the young miss must be eliminated. I live to protect her. Even if I have to dirty my hands, I won't hesitate to do so. Then, at this moment, she suddenly heard a hearty laugh from behind. Found her! There was no anger, no hatred, and no killing intent in that voice. There was only joy and joy, as if a child playing hide-and-seek had discovered his playmate who was hiding in the shadows. Su Qingwan's whole body suddenly tensed up and put on a defensive posture, because she would never forget that it was the voice of the paladin. The female housekeeper quickly turned around and saw a handsome young man standing on the wall behind her under the bright moon. His smile was as brilliant as the starry sky. His clothes were fluttering in the wind, and his temperament was ethereal. It was as if he was no longer a cunning and cynical paladin, but a banished immortal who could break the void at any time. He smiled and cupped his hands. His voice was clear and melodious as he laughed aloud. Wearing night clothes, sneaky movements, murderous intent in your eyes, and your body is ready to attack. Looking at your fighting posture and movements, you are ready to kill me. It seems that you are not a kind person, so I have decided to choose you. Miss, sorry to offend you. Then he rushed to the sky and pounced on Su Qingwan. So fast. Su Qingwan's eyes instantly became cold. She took a step back with her left leg, and her slender and powerful right leg tightened in an instant. Her waist, which was full of explosive power, suddenly rotated, driving her healthy body to quickly turn around, and a swift and violent roundhouse kick hit the paladin's lower abdomen. As long as this kick hit the target, his internal organs would be shattered and he would die on the spot. But a shadow flashed in front of her, and the paladin's white clothes fluttered. The paladin seemed to have predicted her move. His rushing figure quickly stopped and moved to the side. Her right foot, which was wrapped in a long boot, swept past his chest. Then he stretched out his hand and gently stroked the back of her calf. Hey. All the hair on her body stood up at this moment. The pores all over her body were constantly swallowing and contracting. It was as if countless gentle big hands were carefully stroking every inch of her leg, rubbing back and forth on her soft inner thigh. These big hands, which exuded endless heat, patiently stimulated her right leg, but turned a blind eye to the girl's most sensitive part. This was simply the most erotic and cruel punishment in the world, causing her whole body to fall into endless heat in an instant. Her healthy and powerful body softened in an instant. The horrified Su Qingwan instinctively wanted to open her mouth to scream, but the next moment, the paladin had skillfully covered her mouth. All of her screams were blocked, but the moment his hand came into contact with her face, a deadly sense of pleasure assaulted her like a violent storm. She felt the world's most gentle, most handsome, and most outstanding man intimately rubbing his cheek against the side of her face, and then kissing her lips. Bit by bit, she was completely intoxicated. What was going on? Then, the paladin put his other hand on her head and gently stroked it a few times. Endless but refreshing spring water poured into her from her Baihui acupoint and flowed through her whole body, wave after wave, straight to her Yongquan. In an instant, she felt as if she was in a paradise. All the troubles and worries disappeared without a trace, as if this big hand was the safest shelter in the world, blocking all the wind and rain for her. She screamed silently, trembled, and tried her best to hold on to that arm. Then her body trembled violently, and her tall body arched like a fish out of the water, outlining a soul-stirring arc. And then, leaning against the paladin's body, she fell weakly to the ground. The endless pleasure subsided slightly, and her rationality finally returned. Although her body responded with an irresistible pleasure, her rationality frantically warned her that danger was in front of her. Su Qingwan gasped for breath twice, and her body stiffened. Only then did she realize what had happened. She fiercely pinched her thigh, and the pain washed away the remaining happiness. She didn't know what had happened. She didn't know what powerful aphrodisiac or witchcraft she was under, but she knew that something more terrifying was about to happen. The girl panted, struggled, and with a frightened expression, she used all her strength to retreat. At this time, she looked at Sun Lang with a look of horror and despair. How could this be? How could this be? Did he want to do that kind of thing? No, I won't let him have his way even if I die. No, I can't die. If I die, Miss won't be able to hold on. I have to live, even if this kind of person. I have to hold on. I have to take this opportunity to find a way to kill him. Even if I'm humiliated or my innocence is ruined, I don't care. I have to live and protect Miss. So, she took a deep breath and looked at Sun Lang firmly, wanting to express her determination and will, and then firmly remember this person's face in her heart, and turn all the pain and torture that was about to happen into the flames of revenge. And then, she blinked, wondering if she was hallucinating. The paladin, who was supposed to be showing an evil and disgusting smile, for some reason, had a cold face and indifferent eyes. He looked down at her condescendingly, full of contempt and disdain, as if he was looking at a female animal in heat. His jade-like and immortal-like temperament had long been shattered, and his whole person exuded a sense of decadence and depression, as if his fantasy had been shattered by a certain hedgehog-headed teenager's correct fist. He shook his hand, as if it had been stained with something dirty, and said indifferently, "Damn it, woman." Then he shook his hand again, turned around, and left without hesitation, as if he didn't want to stay for a moment longer. What was going on? Su Qingwan felt as if she was in a dream. She was dumbfounded and stunned for a long time. It was not until a wisp of night wind blew by that she felt a trace of coolness caused by the evaporation of water in a certain part of her lower body. Only then did she fully understand what had just happened to her. She suddenly let out a scream, pulled out the short knife that she had been quietly holding, and crazily slashed the wall behind her and the ground under her, crying out, "Bastard, bastard, bastard, bastard." After venting for a while, she gritted her teeth and thought of that bastard paladin. She didn't know what shameless method he had used, but he actually made her. But when she thought of her strange behavior just now, she couldn't help but shiver, and fear had already arisen in her heart. In any case, it was not suitable to fight again today. Just you wait. Next time I will definitely. She gritted her teeth and cursed a few times. In the end, she didn't dare to stay any longer. She slowly got up, held the wall in a very strange posture, and quickly left. Zhang Yinluo, who had been nervous for a while with a sword in his hand, finally saw Sun Lang's figure. The other party was depressed and muttered to himself, "How could this be? How could this be? How could this be?" she asked curiously. "So what's wrong with you?" Sun Lang looked at his hand and looked at Zhang Yinluo, who had a puzzled expression on his face. His heart suddenly thumped. He focused his eyes on the girl's chest. The rather tall and beautiful shape attracted the attention of men with a proud posture. Sun Lang could tell at a glance that it was the real deal. It was not man-made, not silicone, and not a PAD. Obviously, a person with such a pair of real breasts must not be a man. Then his gaze moved down, from top to bottom, to the source of life. His gaze gradually changed from dazed to horrified. Sun Lang sucked in a breath of cold air. "His, Masaka. So, where have you been looking at since just now?" Chapter 42. This was King awkward. The atmosphere between the two of them became strange and subtle. Sun Lang's eyes flickered as he looked at Zhang Yinluo from head to toe from time to time. His extremely aggressive gaze, coupled with his previous misdeeds, undoubtedly made the female arrestor feel that the other party was preparing to act like a rogue. Therefore, Zhang Yinluo's heart skipped a beat. She said in a threatening manner, What do you want? What is your plot? Just say it." Sun Lang suddenly showed a kind smile with a hint of flattery. He said gently, "Arrestor Zhang." "No, Ms. Zhang, I have a few questions to ask." Unfortunately, the ranger's kindness did not move Miss Yinluo at all. After all, Head Constable Zhang had long been used to this guy's vulgar words such as, "Did your head get caught between your breasts? King retard. And drink up this bottle of herring soup." He had realized that this guy's vile nature of not doing anything without benefits, and his backward concept of looking down on women. Therefore, Sun Lang's uncharacteristic flattery was naturally categorized as one who is unaccountably solicitous is hiding evil intentions. The intelligent and wise Ms. Zhang would never fall for this kind of trick. "No matter what kind of scheme you have, I won't let you get away with it." In other words, you don't want to cooperate, right? Sun Lang's expression suddenly changed. He took out a small jar and said, "Then I have to feed you some sticky, white substance and fishy liquid." "Stop it. Humph, you've shown your true colors," Zhang Yinluo sternly shouted. Obviously, she couldn't stand Sun Lang's tyrannical abuse of wanting to feed her with a single word. Spit it out, spit it out. Damn it. I gave you face, but you didn't want it. You just had to force me to do this. Bitches are so pretentious." Sun Lang cursed silently. However, this was a serious matter, and it was not a good time to ridicule her. He thought for a moment and said carefully, "Ms. Zhang, when you were young, did you meet an outrageously handsome monk with golden hair? Then you were hit by his celestial dance wheel and deprived of some kind of feeling?" Zhang Yinluo's mouth twitched. "No." Sun Lang nodded and continued to ask, "Then are you frigid? Well, maybe you haven't heard of this term before. Then I'll ask you about the specific situation. May I ask if you've ever hidden under your blanket in the middle of the night and imagined the scenes of erotic pictures and erotic novels, and then uncontrollably used your fingers or something else to repeatedly touch a few parts of your body?" Shut up, shut up." The female constable's face turned red and she scolded, "What are you asking? I didn't do those things." Her face was red with shame and anger, which meant that she understood. Her eyes were flickering, which meant that she was extremely guilty. Her tone was not firm, which meant that she was lying. No matter what, she shouldn't be frigid. Very well, the next question was about the most important topic. Sun Lang cleared his throat and asked seriously, "Constable, Zhang, are you a man?" Zhang Yinluo's sunran eyes revealed the meaning of "Are you an idiot?" She subconsciously puffed out her chest as if to emphasize something and said indifferently, "Idiot. Well, a girl's modesty? I guess she meant, have you ever seen a man with such big breasts? She was just too embarrassed to say it. But this was the F** king crux of the problem. Girls were not the only ones with big breasts. Bastard. Damn it, I'm going all out. Sun Lang straightened his back and took a deep breath. A hint of determination flashed in his eyes. Under Zhang Yinluo's indifferent gaze, he asked a question that could split the world. Then, Constable Zhang. Last question. He looked at the female constable and asked sincerely, "Do you know that girls don't have a dick?" A moment later, the flower hall was occupied by a storm of swords. It was as if a level 99 barbarian had cast a few level 20 spins here. Constable Zhang couldn't take it anymore and pulled out her sword, declaring to a certain ranger the inviolable glory of dual wielding. Her sword and sword were swift and fierce, suppressing the thorns, chasing after little Meng. However, it was useless. With just a light parry, Sun Lang easily grabbed her wrists. Ah, these slender limbs that contained strength, this soft body with a hint of heat. Ah, this is a girl's body. Damn it, I haven't felt this feeling in 2 years, bastard. If it were any other woman, they would feel as if they were electrocuted. But let me give you a cold shoulder first. It's not over yet. Things won't be that simple. Of course, in this hopeless situation with a passive skill that made people despair, there was a girl who was immune to it. It was simply a gift from the heavens. I'm talking about a partner. But what if I'm helping her? What if she suddenly lifts up her skirt and shows me a big treasure after the strategy is completed? So, the most important thing now is to confirm whether she is a real girl or not. So what should I do? Okay. A kind-hearted spectator has raised her hand. Then, please answer, what? Press her down on the ground and tear her pants? Okay, I've already called the police. Please go there and enjoy the care of the kind-hearted police uncle and steaming hot pork chop rice. Now put your hands on your head and squat at the side. Okay, now let's use quantum theory to explain our current predicament. There's a Zhang Yinluo here. She is immune to my great health power. There are only 2 possibilities. First, she is a girl who is immune to my great health power. Second, she is not a girl. Then what? Press her down on the ground and tear her clothes apart to confirm it. Then what? If it is that kind of indescribable new species, it will dirty my hands, blind my eyes, and leave a deep shadow on my young heart. If it was a real girl, then it will be even worse. I will definitely be treated as an enemy for life. Even if I forcefully start the story, I don't have any other choice other than humiliating her. Other than turning her into a normal sex toy. There is no other choice. So, absolutely, I can't be impulsive. First, I have to think of a peaceful, safe, and secret way to observe Zhang Yinluo's gender. If she is indeed a real girl, then how to establish a new, friendly, and cooperative relationship with her. That is the next thing I have to decide. As for the main historical mission, of course, it is to find a way to observe her. I have to think of a foolproof plan. I say, Zhang Yinluo's voice faintly sounded. First, can you let me go? Second, can your smile not be so disgusting? Third, I feel like you forgot the most important thing. We're here to investigate a case. We are here to find traces of the enemy. We are here to find the missing Qinyu. Sun Lang blinked. What the hell are you talking about? Chapter 43. Sun Lang blinked. Am I ass? Zhang Yinluo roared. Can you be more reliable? Don't tell me you've forgotten about it. Of course not. Of course not. Sun Lang laughed dryly and let go of Zhang Yinluo's hands. He seemed to have thought of something. His expression was a little stiff, and he muttered to himself, "No way." The female detective looked at him and suddenly had a bad feeling. What do you mean, no way? The ranger rubbed his head and pondered for a while. Then he smiled and said, I just found out that I seem to have found the mastermind behind the scenes and defeated her. Zhang Yinluo was surprised. What? Just now? Just when you went out? Have you caught her? Sun Lang gave a thumbs up and smiled. Of course not. She's not dehydrated. She's just a little tired. She must have run away by now. Zhang Yinluo slowly raised his sword. I said, you all wait. Sun Lang thought to himself. How can you blame me for this? At that time, I thought that I was going to have a good life after all the hardships, but then I was hit by fantasy collapse. I'm in a state where my IQ went offline. It's good enough that I was able to maintain my rationality and come back to you. Let me tell you, I'm a strong-willed man. If I'm not strong enough, I'm afraid I'll turn into a pervert on the spot and become a pervert who attacks beautiful girls on the streets. If that's the case, let alone that woman, even you will have to take back a few of your CGs. I'll let you, who doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth, have a taste of what it means to open all 8 gates. However, it was not easy to explain. Sun Lang wanted to tell the truth about his physique and his troubles, but for some reason, the more he looked at Zhang Yinluo, the more he liked him. Sun Lang pondered for a moment. No one knew what was going on in his mind. The ranger suddenly put on a righteous face and said, "It's like this. After I rescued you from that trap, I immediately realized that all of this was definitely a trick set up by the other party. Think about it. When you were about to fall into the trap, I was outside. If I couldn't save you in time, and you fell into the trap, not to mention life and death, the me outside would have to face tens of thousands of arrows and an extremely dangerous situation alone. There was almost no chance of survival." He instantly changed his style and said with a burning gaze, "If you want to silence us, why do you have to go through so much trouble? You can activate the mechanism as soon as you step into the garden. Why do you have to go through so much trouble?" Judging from this, the other party must have made 2 preparations. If you were the one who fell into the trap, then they would use the traps in the garden to kill me. If I was the one who fell into the trap, then there must be even more powerful traps waiting for me. In short, Sun Lang raised a finger. The other party's purpose is to kill me without killing you. Zhang Yinluo's attention was diverted by his serious appearance. After thinking for a while, she realized that it was indeed true. She pondered for a moment and said, "Why didn't the other party kill me? Are you stupid?" Sun Lang rolled his eyes. "Because your family is very powerful. If you were to die here, would your family be willing to let you go? The other party definitely doesn't want to make enemies for no reason. This is the first possibility." The female arrestor blinked and asked subconsciously, "What about the second possibility?" The second possibility. The ranger glanced at Zhang Yinluo's plump breasts and said seriously, "Maybe the other party saw you and thought of a little cow that died young when she was young. Seeing the milk made her think of the cow, so she had a great sense of intimacy and affinity with you. So she wanted to be friends with you. She wanted to bring you back to her big house and put on a very beautiful collar and chain for you. She wanted to protect you, love you, and stay with you forever." Zhang Yinluo sighed. "I always feel that after you came back, you have become a lot more obscene." Sun Lang turned his head as if nothing had happened and said, "It's just your illusion. Okay. Now it seems that I have implicated you." Zhang Yinluo laughed at herself. "I was the one who dragged you into this matter. But now you are in danger." She looked a little lonely and said softly, "I have always thought that I am very powerful, not because of my family background or strength, but because I can stick to my beliefs and draw my sword for injustice. No matter how others look at me, I don't care about other people's opinions. Even if everyone looks on coldly, I will still do what I think is right, just like now. I am proud that I can carry out my beliefs to the end, even if everyone doesn't understand my actions. I don't want to be those useless people who rely on their family background to bully people and take advantage of women. I just want to do something meaningful. Father said that people choose their own path, but don't cause trouble for others. I have always done so." She smiled bitterly. "Do what you think is right, but don't force others to have the same views and beliefs as you. Don't force them to do the same thing as you. I have always been like this, but this time, I have put you in danger." The female arrestor shook her head and said softly, "If the situation just now was like what you said, and you died under thousands of arrows, I am afraid that for the rest of my life, I will not be able to rest in peace." She hesitated for a moment. "Why don't we just let this matter go? Although the other party did not dare to kill me, they wanted to kill you. This time, maybe you're lucky, but the next time? So, you should leave." As she said this, she lowered her head. For a moment, she was actually afraid. She was afraid that she would hear some kind of answer from Sun Lang. She was afraid that Sun Lang would simply turn around and leave. No matter what, she had to get to the bottom of this matter. However, if she was alone, but she had no right to ask Sun Lang to stay. She could not let others risk their lives to help her. She did not even know what to say. However, the next moment, he felt a pain in his head. It was as if he had been hit on the head. Zhang Yinluo held his head in pain and raised his head. He saw a sloppy face and an expression that said, "Are you King kidding me?" He looked like a hooligan who was chasing after a lone shark on the street. He said fiercely, "What? You want to go back on your word?" She did not know whether to laugh or cry. She said, "You, between the Imperial Army and your life, which is more important? So you are a dead man. Didn't I tell you before? We can only be responsible for our own actions and beliefs. We have no right to interfere with other people's lives." Sun Lang snatched the Jinghong sword from her hand and carried it on his shoulder. He raised his eyebrows. "You still misunderstood. The meaning behind this is not only that you cannot let others accept your beliefs in justice, nor is it that you cannot force others to fight for you," but he smiled and tapped Zhang Yinluo's forehead. "Don't make decisions for others without permission." Then he reached out and patted the female arrester's shoulder. He laughed heartily. "That's right. I have never given up on the things that I have promised others. You will not be an exception. I have said that once you take this sword, I will help you find out the truth. No matter who your opponent is, I will fight alongside you. If you don't back down, I won't back down. Why? I haven't backed down yet, but you are. Besides," he sneered with a look that said, "I am very King smart. Don't try to fool me. Besides, I have worked hard for you for an entire day. Not to mention other things. I have thrown 3 cans of canned herring and defeated a strong enemy for you. In your words, it is like walking in feces and water. You haven't even paid me my wages, and you want to send me away so easily?" Hearing this, Zhang Yinluo finally could not help but laugh. "You're not a bad person, but you have to pretend to be so unscrupulous. Can't you be a little more frank? Are you saying that I am at Tsundere? You're the Tsundere. Your whole family is Tsundere. However, it is said that there is a large market for Tsundere, so I will not lower myself to your level for now." Forget it. The female arrester said grumpily, "Since you don't know what's good for you, I'll let you do whatever you want. But then again, is there any connection between the things you explained and analyzed just now and the fact that you ran out and defeated the enemy with a convulsive face? What happened to you just now?" Sun Lang's handsome face suddenly froze, but his eyes quickly blinked for a few seconds and his expression quickly returned to normal. He said proudly, "Do you still need to ask? Since the other party wants to capture you and kill me, she must have a backup plan. Since I have sensed her intentions, I can naturally judge and analyze that she is in the vicinity, so I must give her a surprise attack as fast as lightning." Zhang Yinluo was stunned for a moment, then said angrily, "Is this why you left me alone to do such a dangerous thing?" The ranger did not even think and said, "This is called strategy. You have no experience in fighting at night, and it is very time-consuming to explain it to you. The two of us acted together, and the target was big, so it was easy to alert the enemy. Most importantly, if the enemy had a large number of people in ambush, even with you, we would definitely be outnumbered. It is better to let you stay where you are and shout a warning when something happens, so you can go back and call for reinforcements. If the enemy can't catch you, they will definitely have scruples. Even if they capture me, they won't dare to do anything to me. Don't you think so?" Zhang Yinluo was speechless. Although the ranger's logic was impeccable, she vaguely felt that something was not right. Moreover, Sun Lang's behavior tonight was really a little strange. At first, he was quite normal, as usual. But after he came back from his convulsions, the way he looked at her seemed to be a little more lustful. Moreover, he had said several times that I was not allowed to have any physical contact with him. In the previous few accidents, he quickly avoided me and warned me very seriously. But today, after he carried me out of the trap, I didn't see any reaction from him. And just now, he nodded his head and patted his shoulder several times. These actions, It felt like he was doing it deliberately. What's going on? What a strange person. I don't know how many things he is hiding from me. She secretly remembered Sun Lang's strange behavior today, thinking that if she had time in the future, she would find a way to figure it out. As for the great ranger Sun Lang, he did not realize that his acting was actually full of loopholes. At this moment, he was happily and reservedly sighing about his profound skills. Although it has been 2 years, this king's skill of gaining favorability is still so skillful. It is really too amazing. Chapter 44. Is this the place where you fought with the enemy? Zhang Yinluo stood on the eaves of the small building, overlooking the dark and empty courtyard. She followed the direction Sun Lang pointed and walked a few steps, observing the scene of the battle under the moonlight. Sun Lang's eyes did not blink. Yes, it's the place where I fought with a strong enemy and finally defeated her. The female arrestor looked at the sharp knife marks on the ground and the wall. She squinted for a while and found something strange. Although she did not have the ability to judge the opponent's martial arts and even physical characteristics by observing the knife marks like Sun Lang, she still had the most basic experience and common sense as a warrior. Hey, the distribution of these knife marks is a bit strange. From the angle of force and the direction of the slash, the opponent seemed to be sitting on the ground and slashing randomly. The paladin looked calm and said, "This after I defeated her. She panicked and slashed wildly with her knife to prevent me from approaching. Alas, her psychological quality is really bad. Humph, liar, you must have used some shameless method to scare her, so that she panicked and desperately resisted." Zhang Yinluo glanced at Sun Lang and snorted coldly. "You only know how to bully girls. Were you very perverted at that time, saying that you would do something to her? Otherwise, you took out the canned herring again. Humph, you can actually scare a bad person like that." Sun Lang said angrily, "How can you slander my innocence? When I saw her, I was polite. When I defeated her, I was cold and indifferent. I didn't say a single word of flirtation, and I didn't show any perverted expression. From the beginning to the end, there was only respect for women and contempt for the enemy. Don't mention how gentlemanly I was. You can't talk nonsense. It will damage my reputation." "Bah, you still have a reputation? I've only known you for a short period of time, but I feel that you've already thrown away all your sense of shame and integrity. However, now is not the time for bickering and mockery." Zhang Yinluo squatted down and observed carefully. Suddenly, she realized that there were some wet marks and water stains on the ground. There was also a strange smell in the air. She frowned and felt that the smell was a little familiar. She did not even dare to pick it up to observe because she was afraid that it was a biochemical tactical weapon like canned herring or the Grand Universe drink that the grandson beside her had thrown out. She asked directly, "What is this?" "Well," Sun Lang squinted his eyes and smiled innocently. "It should be the fluid left behind from her intense exercise and nervousness." "Oh, F***CK. I didn't see it. It's actually so much. That woman's excretion is so large. She's actually so sensitive." Zhang Yinluo was stunned for a moment. Then she smiled and said, "Sweat is sweat, not body fluid. Everything that comes out of your mouth has a perverted taste." She stood up and patted the dust off her hands. Her eyes became serious. "So, do you remember the woman's appearance? Her physical characteristics, her appearance, her voice?" "Of course I don't remember. I've always regarded women as dumb. All the women in the world are no different in my hands. Why should I remember the appearance of a woman I'm not familiar with? Just now, I analyzed one of her characteristics, which was that she excreted a lot of water. But that woman does seem a little familiar, as if I've seen her somewhere before. However, I can't say this in front of head Constable Zhang. Otherwise, his favorability will drop." Sun Lang blinked and said without hesitation, "She didn't say a word. She must be afraid of exposing her whereabouts. Moreover, she was wearing a mask that covered her face. Her moves were scattered, so I couldn't see her moves in background." Zhang Yinluo sighed. "Can't you interrogate her, knock her out, or find a way to confirm her physical characteristics?" At that time, I had just eaten a fantasy collapse, and my cognitive world almost collapsed. It was already a miracle that I didn't directly F***CK her into a sow. Why would I waste time on her? However, I can't say this, Sun Lang said seriously. At that time, she was brandishing her saber and putting on a pitiful look. She seemed to be flirting with me. She put on a look that said, I'm weak and pitiful, but I have a good figure, so don't F***CK me. Obviously, she was trying to seduce me. I observed her for a while and found that I couldn't take her down in a short time. If she wasn't after my beauty, then she must be trying to delay me. What's the purpose of delaying me? Obviously, she wanted to take the opportunity to attack and then kidnap you. When I thought of this, I couldn't care less about her and immediately came back to find you. He pondered for a moment and touched his chin. But no enemy came to attack you. This means that she was after my beauty, Zhang Yinluo spat. Can't you speak properly? I was just touched, and then you said this again, she said regretfully. Although it's not your fault, if you let her run away. If you could catch her, everything would be solved. She escaped this time, but the next time you catch her, it might be more difficult. Sun Lang smiled. Who said it has to be the next time? Looking at Zhang Yinluo's surprised and expectant eyes, the ranger gave him a thumbs up and smiled. Although I couldn't get anything out of her quickly, it didn't stop me from leaving a little mark on her body. Following this mark, I could track her all the way. Zhang Yinluo was surprised. Really? Sun Lang smiled. Of course it's true. Aren't I very witty? In this way, the enemy is in the dark and I am in the light. The situation will be reversed. Are you happy? Come, in order to celebrate, let's have a pure hug. The female arrestor smiled and dodged Sun Lang's attack. She jumped down the small building and said, Get ready, we're going to catch up. You bastard, you don't know how much I sacrificed for this. I must get it back with interest. Sun Lang looked at the girl's bright smile and said to himself, Damn, if I can, I really don't want to use this trick. TSK, 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 TSK. If you don't sacrifice the child, you can't trap the wolf. He took a deep breath, and his eyes flashed with determination. He slowly squatted down and sniffed gently with his nose. He caught a trace of a strange fragrance in the air. The smell of a beautiful girl was disgusting. He closed his eyes and muttered to himself, The smell of a beautiful girl in heat, the smell of a beautiful girl in heat, the smell of a beautiful girl in heat. Capture success. The ranger suddenly stood up and looked in a direction. There it was. That woman. I can't let her go. How dare she let me smell her? Sun Lang said fiercely, See how I deal with you. Chapter 45. The night was getting late, and it was cold and silent. Two people, one in front and one behind, were running in the dark alleys and on the roofs. Sun Lang ran at the front, his gaze as sharp as an eagle's. His movements were without hesitation, just as his gaze was never hesitant, always aiming in the most correct direction. His steps were vigorous, his clothes fluttering in the wind, and his back exuded a sense of steadiness that made people feel at ease. That was the temperament of a leader. Confidence, strength, it made people involuntarily submit and follow him just by looking at his back as he stood in front. Of course, in the front where Zhang Yinluo could not see, Sun Lang's nose was constantly twitching, as if he was sniffing a smell that could not be described in detail. Damn, this materialistic city was really depraved. Everywhere he went, he could smell a disgusting smell. For example, in the room with the elm tree in the front left courtyard, the smell was really unpleasant. It was most likely the smell of 40-year-old abalone. And in the embroidery building hundreds of feet away on the right, there was a slightly fresh and unripe smell. Most likely, it was a young lady who was curled up in her bed and trying some kind of small game that could not be described in detail. Damn, these women were really bored to death. Life was so colorful, and the world was so beautiful, but they were thinking about these kinds of things every day. Damn it, I'm going to die from the smell. This debt was also placed on the big-breasted girl behind him. Gathering his spirit and using the power of the great health to strengthen his sense of smell, although he could keenly track the scent of beautiful girls. But this was the side effect. He had to search for his target in this materialistic world, and the price was that he would also smell other discordant scents. For Sun Lang, who regarded beauty as dung and all lust as fleeting clouds, this was really annoying. Damn, I'll feed you milk every day and let you taste something new. Sun Lang tried his best to distinguish the trace of smell left by the enemy in the numerous disturbances and followed her trail with Zhang Yinluo. According to her route of retreat, speed, and the time she stayed, Sun Lang's impression of her gradually grew. His martial arts were not bad, his stamina was good, and his flexibility and endurance were high. He should have gone through tough training. His talent was also not bad, and his willpower was strong enough. However, his anti-tracking ability was weak, or he lacked relevant experience. He was a rookie, so it was more likely that he was the one. She must have a very high status beside her master, and their relationship must be very close. She was willing to do some dirty work for her master. At this moment, Zhang Yinluo, who was behind him, asked, "That's amazing. How did you do it?" To think that he could track me down so quickly, Sun Lang said without turning his head. Press E and enter Eagle Eye Vision. You'll be able to see the tracks she left behind when she walked. Stingy. If you don't want to say it, then don't say it. Why do you always make up such strange things to deceive people? Zhang Yinluo snorted. She probably guessed that Sun Lang had to concentrate at this time, so she tactfully shut her mouth and silently followed his footsteps. She did not know when, but she had gotten used to following behind him and did not need to think about other things. For example, she never doubted whether the ranger was leading the way or not. He didn't know how long he had been tracking through the darkness, but Sun Lang suddenly stopped. Finally found it. Zhang Yinluo came out from behind him, and in front of them was a long wall protecting a courtyard. It seemed to be a huge garden with a big gate. She did not know whose property it was. At this time, the moon was dark and the wind was strong, so it was quiet. However, she could occasionally hear light and neat footsteps. There should be guards patrolling inside the wall. Sun Lang laughed in a low voice. A big gate and a deep house. It's really a place to hide evil. Did she escape inside? Zhang Yinluo frowned. Strange, this place seems familiar. Sun Lang's body shook. He turned his head and said happily, "Why? Is this your home? Why are you so happy?" Zhang Yinluo shouted in a low voice. "This is not my home. If there's such a scum in my family, I'll be the first to kill him. Is it? What a pity. I really want to see the stupid face you show when you find out that the murderer is actually a member of your family." Sun Lang sighed and picked his nose. "Since it's not your home, let's get ready to work. We'll sneak in under the cover of the night, find the woman, knock her out, and kidnap her. Then we'll have a series of friendly exchanges with her." Zhang Yinluo asked curiously, "Knock her out? Knock her out. Is there something wrong with your head?" Sun Lang snorted. "How can you knock her out? Why don't you show me?" But the female detective frowned. Since she escaped back to her nest, she must have changed her clothes and washed away the suspicion. If we break in to arrest her, we won't have any evidence. Instead, we'll be blamed. You're so naive. Sun Lang was surprised. You're a cop, but you're saying such unprofessional things. Since ancient times, there have only been suspects that couldn't be caught, but there has never been a confession that couldn't be obtained. If you ask me, we'll sneak in now and kidnap the woman. Then we'll put her in a small dark room. I'll do some tricks. Don't frown. You haven't seen what your uncle's son can do. I don't use canned herring, tiger stool, or chili water. I have special talking skills and a whole skill tree. The legendary 18 subduing moves and woman's 3 punches are just basic skills. Speaking of this, he frowned. Although I'm a gentleman who respects women and a pacifist, I'm very opposed to using this method to communicate with female friends. To be honest, every time I use it, it will cause deep damage to my young heart. I won't like drinking water for a few days. But as a man, I have to keep my word. Since I promised you, I have to do it seriously. Seeing that Zhang Yinluo was still hesitating, he raised his eyebrows. Are you possessed again? Have you forgotten the 3 basic rules we agreed on? If you can't even accept the way a ranger does things, why did you invite me? Chapter 46. In the previous operation, Zhang Yinluo had heard Sun Lang seriously introduce some infiltration skills. The one that left the deepest impression on her was the Kang's infiltration method, which was invented by a Barakan named Connor. Although she did not know what Baraka meant from the core meaning of the infiltration method, as long as you kill all the witnesses, you will not fail in infiltration. This Baraka must be a synonym for violence and ferocity. Therefore, the female arrestor was very afraid that Sun Lang, who had sneaked in the mansion, would suddenly kill all the night patrols and witnesses he saw. After all, she had deeply experienced this person's temperamental and unpredictable behavior before this. However, to her relief, this guy actually listened to the sounds and identified the figures, predicted the patrolling route of the night patrols, and then silently bypassed them and kept moving forward. But soon, Zhang Yinluo began to feel conflicted again because this guy was too skilled. In this vast and complex mansion, he actually did not get lost at all. From his expression, movements, and observation of the surrounding environment, he definitely did not get lost. Every time he pulled himself into the trees and rockery, a guard would inevitably come out from a secret path after a while and vigilantly observe the surroundings. He was so skilled that people could not help but wonder why he was so skilled and how many times he had done this. Zhang Yinluo could not help but ask in a low voice, "Hey, you seem to be very familiar with this place. Is this your home?" Sun Lang curled his lips and whispered, "F***CK. If this is my home, do I still need to be a paladin? All day long, I eat delicious food, drink spicy wine, sleep with maids, visit prostitutes, and flirt with good women on the street when I have nothing to do." Zhang Yinluo curled her lips and expressed her disdain for his vulgar interests. However, when she thought of the large area and the large number of guards here, she could not help but feel a little flustered. "Hey, how confident are you? Now that things have gotten to this point, if we can't succeed in one strike, then we'll be in big trouble. Although I don't know which family this is, given the scale of this place, it's definitely not ordinary. If we get trapped inside," the ranger chuckled. "If you have time to think about this, why don't you think about something more important? This place is rich and powerful, and the defense is tight. They must not be easy to deal with. The woman who ambushed us is very likely to be in a high position here. She may even be the closest and most capable person of her master. They kidnapped Chinyu. As a righteous policeman of the 6th Fan School, how can you convict them even if you catch them red-handed?" This, Zhang Yinluo was speechless for a moment. She was already past the age of naivety and hot-bloodedness. How could she not know about the unfairness and darkness of the world, the protection and power games of the officialdom? This kind of rich family must be inextricably linked to Mingzhou's officialdom. From the 6th Fan School system to the provincial government, which official would be willing to punish this kind of family for a small female cat burglar? Even if she sent the criminals to the magistrate's office and presented a lot of strong evidence, His Excellency would deliberately delay the matter and say that he needed to think about it for a few days. The 6th Fan School would also pretend to be deaf and mute. Perhaps her family would also scold her or even ground her. After all, she was a member of the Zhang family. Honor and disgrace were inseparable. Doing so would be tantamount to making enemies for her family. Most importantly, she had the protection of the Zhang family and her master. Even if she offended this family, there wouldn't be any big problems. But this ranger in front of her, would Shoshin bear all the responsibility for her? The girl was silent for a moment and said softly, "This is a serious matter. We can't act rashly. The most important thing now is to save Chinyu. We have to at least ensure her safety. As for other things, we'll talk about it when the time comes." Sun Lang turned to look at her and smiled. "At least you have some conscience." Zhang Yinluo blushed when his thoughts were seen through. He shook his fist and said, "Hurry up and lead the way. You talk too much." The ranger shrugged and pointed to a small courtyard in front of them. "Do you see that? The target seems to have entered that place. Let's go listen to the corner and see if any of our friends are trading." The two of them tiptoed all the way to this small courtyard. The decorations here were exquisite and restrained, secretive and stylish. Every blade of grass and every tree was very delicate. Sun Lang gave Zhang Yinluo a meaningful glance. Zhang Yinluo understood, and the two of them quietly climbed up to the roof. They kept low all the way, listening to the sounds below and looking for traces of their target. Suddenly, a faint conversation came out from the gap between the tiles. Sun Lang's spirit was refreshed. He waved to Zhang Yinluo and then quietly took off a tile to peek inside. The female arrestor hesitated for a moment and then moved her head closer. The two of their shoulders touched. Zhang Yinluo could feel the heat from Sun Lang's side. Sun Lang could also feel the touch of the girl's hair on her temples. For a moment, the two of them were a little absent-minded, until a woman's voice came from below. "My lord, I don't know what's the matter you called me in the middle of the night. It's inconvenient for a man and a woman to be alone in a room. If there's anything, why don't we talk tomorrow?" This voice sounds a little familiar. Sun Lang woke up from his daze. He felt like he had heard this woman's voice somewhere before. But before he could think carefully, a man's voice sounded. "I just couldn't sleep at night. When I came to the courtyard to admire the moon, I saw Butler Sue wearing night clothes and leaving in a hurry. So I invited you. I'm really sorry if I offended you. Butler Sue is in a hurry tonight. Did you go to deal with an important matter? Did it go well? Where the hell did this wild man come from? He's not even half a scholar. It's really annoying." Housekeeper Sue's voice sounded like he was gnashing his teeth as he slowly said, "Thank you for your concern, sir. The operation this time was not successful, but this humble one has already ascertained the enemy's situation and understood the other party's style and methods. Next time, I will definitely find the right medicine to treat the problem and make those rascals shut their mouths forever." Sun Lang secretly laughed as he listened from above. This woman really knows how to brag. How are you going to deal with the problem? Drink more hot water? Is that so? The man chuckled. Then, I wish Butler Sue success. But the female cat burglar Cheen Yu has caused quite a lot of trouble. She even attracted the attention of the rangers and constables. If this matter is exposed, it will attract the attention of the higher-ups. I'm afraid that your miss won't be able to explain herself. At that time, this huge family business, this glamorous building, I'm afraid it will all be gone. Butler Sue gritted his teeth and said, "My lord, please rest assured. We will never forget the mission that you have given us. We will definitely complete the mission that the higher-ups have assigned us beautifully." That had better be the case. The man sighed. "Actually, how could I not know that your family is not easy? Miss Zhao is a woman who doesn't lose out to men. She is supporting this family business by herself, which really makes us men blush with shame. But in this world, men are the ones in power. Your family indeed needs a man." Butler Sue immediately interrupted him and said directly, "Miss Zhao has always had her own opinions. I'm just a servant. As for the marriage of the master's man and woman, it is not up to me to make irresponsible remarks. If one day Miss Zhao meets someone she likes and wants to marry him, I will happily put on makeup for her and put on a phoenix veil for her. But if anyone wants to force her, I will risk my life and perish together with that person." The man was met with a soft rebuff and was a little embarrassed for a moment. Then he started to find something to talk about. "Butler Sue, who is dressed in black tonight, has a different style. You are really valiant and formidable. And I smell a faint fragrance from Butler Sue, which is like an orchid in an empty valley. It must be the fragrance of a beauty. Butler Sue is also an outstanding beauty. Who would have thought that when this matter was mentioned?" Housekeeper Sue immediately became impatient. She directly said, "Sir, if there's nothing else, this one will take her leave. Tonight was really rude. I'll come again tomorrow to apologize." "Butler Sue, please wait. There's one more thing." He said, "Is Cheen Yu still unwilling to speak? Your miss is good at everything, but she is not ruthless enough. Why don't you give her to me? Miss Zhao knows what she is doing. There is no need to trouble my lord." Butler Sue honestly and bluntly interrupted him. "I will take my leave." "Humph. The man's voice also became cold. Then, tell your Miss Zhao to take care of herself. Butler Su pushed the door and left. Her slim and healthy body disappeared through the gate of this small courtyard. Zhang Yinluo gave a meaningful glance to Sun Lang, indicating that he should still not chase after her. But the ranger waved his hand, indicating that there was no hurry. Damn it, the really interesting big fish is below. Why should we ignore the essentials and chase after the details? Since we already know the location of this place, and that woman is Butler Su, why should we worry about not being able to find her? At this time, the man's voice came from inside the room again. Humph, sooner or later, I will get my hands on this woman. Damn it. Even that Qin Yu won't let me touch her. Women are so pretentious. However, fortunately, tonight can't be considered as a fruitless harvest. At least, there's a guest lying on the roof. Listening to her breathing, she should be a beautiful woman. Such a beautiful scene, miss. Don't you want to come down and sit? Zhang Yinluo was discovered. Her heart was startled. Instinctively, she looked at Sun Lang. Then, she felt strange. There were obviously two people here. Why did that man only notice her? But she was surprised to find that Sun Lang, who was opposite her, showed a very meaningful smile. The ranger made a gesture to her, then quietly climbed down and jumped to the ground. He came to the door and shouted with a sharp voice, "Uncle, I am here to send you warmth." Then he kicked the door open. Zhang Yinluo only heard a low roar and the muffled sound of a fist hitting a body. Rich oil root. Chapter 47. Zhang Yinluo felt like he was going crazy. Why aren't you following the rules again? What happened to the secret infiltration? What happened to tracking down the murderer? The person below could easily detect me, which means that he must be an expert. Why did you stupidly charge in? Even if we can defeat him together, what if we make a loud noise and the patrolling guards hear us? She clenched her teeth and prepared to immediately smash the roof tiles and attack from above, besieging the strong enemy inside the house. But when she tilted her head to listen, she unexpectedly did not hear the shouts of the two people fighting. She only heard Sun Lang's continuous strange cry, "Rich oil root. Adujen. Jij Brugen. Euler, 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 Euler." Then there's a series of muffled sounds of punches hitting flesh, as if someone was beating a pig. Zhang Yinluo knew that something was wrong, so she quickly jumped down from the roof and walked into the hall. Then, she found that in the brightly lit room, a man in embroidered clothes was lying on the ground like a dead pig, and Sun Lang was excitedly grabbing the man's head and slamming it on the ground. F***CK your mother. You really can take a beating. Zhang Yinluo was stunned for a moment, then hurriedly went up to pull Sun Lang. Hey, stop hitting him. He's going to be beaten to death by you. She forcefully pulled Sun Lang up and looked at the brocade-clothed man who had already fainted on the ground. She frowned and said, "This fellow's martial arts are actually so sloppy and ordinary. How could he be so weak?" Sun Lang nodded in agreement. "That's right, it's too weak." Zhang Yinluo squinted at the ranger. "So, why did you come in and hit him? What's your purpose?" "Of course." Sun Lang clapped his hands and said, "Did you hear his conversation with Steward Su?" Sure enough, there was a deal between friends. Housekeeper Su and her master are serving a mysterious force, and this scum is the messenger of that force. As for Qin Yu, she works for Housekeeper Su and her master. The three of them are intertwined with each other, and there must be something hidden within. He extended his leg and kicked the dead pig beneath his feet. In other words, according to the normal storyline, in order to track down Qin Yu, we ended up fighting with Butler Su. After fighting with Butler Su, we would have to fight with Butler Su's master. In the end, the plot would be revealed and the final boss would surface. It is this stupid pig. In other words, this fellow is the final boss of this instant's dungeon. Zhang Yinluo got the gist of the story and vaguely understood what this guy meant. "So you beat him up right now?" "Of course." Sun Lang smiled proudly. "This is called taking drastic measures to deal with the situation. This is called taking the unusual path. Think about it. Others had to move Deathwing from the Cavern of Time all the way to the Temple of Dragon's Rest. You, on the other hand, grabbed that bastard's tail and smashed him around like a rolling pin. How bloody cool is that? The female detective rolled her eyes. And then? What should we do? That will depend on you. Sun Lang suddenly revealed a faint smile. Butler Sue's words revealed some information. They are indeed the ones who kidnapped Qin Yu. Qin Yu is in their hands. As long as we go after her and capture her, we can interrogate her. That way, we will be able to find the female cat burglar's location and drag her out. He stretched out his foot and stepped on the back of the man on the ground, slowly saying, "But you should also understand that this matter is not simple. Qin Yu has been involved in an incredible conspiracy. Even a large family like housekeeper Su has been suppressed and controlled by others, serving them and carrying out mysterious missions for them. How about it, Goddess Arrestor? Do you want to continue to get involved in this matter?" The female detective hesitated for a moment. Then she gritted her teeth and said, "Qin Yu's role is not that simple. From the conversation between the two of them, we know that Qin Yu seems to be hiding a big secret in her heart. Regardless of whether it is Butler Su or Butler Su, they are eager to know the secret from Qin Yu. In other words, even if we go directly to save Qin Yu, the problem will not be solved. Moreover, there's a crime happening. I can't turn a blind eye to it." She glanced at Sun Lang. "Moreover, Butler Su has been paying attention to the two of us for a long time. When you hit him just now, did he see your face? Even if we want to withdraw, it is probably too late. So, we can only move forward. Maybe there will be a turning point. We must find the most perfect solution." Sun Lang nodded and praised. "You're right. Although you're simple-minded, naive, childish, and silly, you're decisive and not sloppy at all. You're really good." Zhang Yinluo retorted. "Same to you. Although your character is bad, despicable, shameless, and disgusting, at least you keep your words and do your best. You're still a man." The two stared at each other for a moment and then laughed at the same time. Sun Lang bent down and picked up the big fish on the ground. "It is not safe here after all. Let's take him out and find a small dark room to have a friendly conversation. Let's see if he is willing to cooperate with the party's work. I wonder what kind of expression the housekeeper will have when she wakes up tomorrow morning and finds that the big boss has been taken away out of thin air." "Ha!" Su Qingluan's figure was hidden in the moonlight, quietly returning to her own small courtyard. As the housekeeper who was as close as a sister to eldest young miss, she naturally had her own residence and other courtyard. And to her, the entire Marquis Jing and Fu was already a place where she could walk around with her eyes closed. Even the route that the guards used to patrol at night was set by her. The changes and twists of every route were all in her mind, so she did not alert any guards on the way home and quietly return home. After all, her current appearance was very undignified. Bastard, bastard, bastard. She cursed inwardly. Today was simply the most humiliating day in her life. She was actually, her undergarment that was soaked in sweat gave her a very uncomfortable, sticky feeling. Whenever she thought about it, her evil fire would rise and her mind would become restless. She actually became like that, and it was in front of the enemy. That ranger, what kind of evil medicine did he use, or what kind of evil cultivation method did he practice? It actually made her become like that. No matter what, next time, I will definitely make you pay. Su Qingluan muttered to herself as she unbuttoned her clothes. There were no lights in the room, and the dark night protected the young girl's body. Only her ivory-white body faintly reflected an alluring light. No matter if it's an evil cultivation method or an evil cultivation method, there will always be a way to restrain it. Tomorrow, I will go to the strange doctor to ask for some restraining medicine that can clear the mind and concentrate the mind. Then I will cover my mouth and nose and secretly ambush him so that he does not have time to use those shameless methods. I will definitely be able to succeed in one strike and make him unable to harm anyone else. This despicable and shameless pervert. While cursing in a low voice, she took off her wet and air-dried undergarment and then threw it aside. Without the cover of her clothes, her sticky body exuded a strange fragrance. She turned to look at the mirror on the dressing table. Her tall and muscular body was reflected in the bronze mirror, exuding a strange beauty. Since the age of 13 or 14, she had been a little troubled by the fact that she was growing too fast. Even for a period of time, she was even ashamed to look at her own body. But now, smelling the faint fragrance and looking at her own naked body, she actually blushed and her heart beat faster. But suddenly, there was a sound of footsteps in the courtyard. Su Qingwan suddenly woke up and her body tightened in an instant. But the next moment, she breathed a sigh of relief because she knew the footsteps. She would never mishear it in her life. It was the young lady she wanted to protect, the person she valued most in the world. But very quickly, she found the problem. Even if she was the eldest young miss, she couldn't see her in this state. Just as panic rose in her heart, the young lady had already walked to the door and gently knocked on the door. "Sister, are you asleep?" "I'm asleep. I'm asleep. Of course I'm asleep." Su Qingwan walked quickly to the bed, stuffed all the clothes thrown on the bed into the quilt, and then slipped into the quilt. However, in a panic, even a heroine with unique skills would make mistakes. Her calf accidentally knocked on the foot of the bed, making a thud. "It hurts." Tears almost oozed out of the corners of her eyes, and she desperately bit the quilt. The young lady outside heard the sound and directly pushed the door. Unexpectedly, the door creaked open. Su Qingwan's eyes widened, and then she screamed in her heart. He actually forgot to bolt the door. Chapter 48. When Su Qingwan heard her miss push the door and enter, she secretly complained in her heart, but it was really not good to pretend to sleep. Moreover, when she was young, she and Miss slept together. Although the girl had just grown up, her habit of acting coquettishly had not changed. Sometimes, she would coquettishly come to sleep with her. Now she was like this. Miss passed through the screen from the flower hall and came to the bedroom. She whispered, "Sister, are you asleep?" Housekeeper Sue had no choice but to say, "Miss, I just slept lightly, so I woke up." "Please wait a moment. I'm putting on my clothes." The girl outside laughed and said, "I'm not a man. Are you afraid that I'll eat you? Besides, why did you forget to lock the door today?" If a flower thief comes in, won't you suffer a big loss?" Su Qingwan's heart had long been in a panic. The clothes stuffed under the quilt were night clothes. Her underwear were stained by sweat and that kind of thing, exuding a suspicious smell. Before she had time to take out clean clothes, she hurriedly fled to the bed. How could there be clean clothes at this time? She had no choice but to quickly put on the still wet underwear with a bitter face. But before she finished dressing, Miss had already walked in and easily found the direction of the bed in the dark. She sat on the bed and said, "Sister, you don't have to get up, and you don't have to light the lamp. Sometimes it's easier to talk when it's dark. Today was the most embarrassing day in her life." Su Qingwan simply wanted to hit the bed with her head. Her body shrank in the quilt, and her underwear was on her knees. She didn't dare to pull it up and didn't even dare to breathe. The housekeeper pretended to be calm and said, Miss, it's the middle of the night. Although you're in your own mansion, it's not safe to go out alone. After all, so, if there's anything, let the maid inform me, and I'll go over." The girl suddenly sighed faintly. "Sister, I haven't seen you all day today. Did you do something behind my back?" Su Qingwan's body stiffened. Sister, I know that no matter what you do, it's for my own good. So if you don't want to tell me, I won't continue to ask," she said softly, "but I'm a little worried. We're doing this kind of thing. We're making a deal with an unparalleled monster. In the past, in order to protect myself and you, I abandoned my so-called kinship and so-called kindness. We're facing countless malice and greed, and we're being targeted by all kinds of despicable means. I had no choice but to use similar means to fight back. I've always convinced myself that this is just to protect us, that we're innocent, but now," she said softly, "we're about to attack innocent people. They're not bad people. They didn't want to hurt us, but we're going to hurt them. Now, I'm even going to abandon my conscience. Su Qingwan reached out and held the right hand of the young lady, who was supporting herself on the edge of the bed. She said firmly, "If you don't want to, we'll go and refuse tomorrow." "How is that possible? There's already no turning back." The young lady smiled bitterly. "The other party is so powerful. How can this deal allow us to back out, just because we say so? I should have understood a long time ago. They paid such a high price because they definitely wanted to earn even more from us. All of Marquis Jingon Fu's family business and reputation, the lives of the hundreds of people in the Fu, they are all tied to their chariot." She gripped Su Qingwan's hand tightly. Even with housekeeper Su's martial strength, he also felt a slight pain. But this was far from the pity in her heart. Ever since she was young, the young lady had to bear many things that she shouldn't bear. She had always tried her best to share the burden for her, but there was still a heavy burden that pressed down on the shoulders of the weak young girl. At this time, the young lady spoke again. "Actually, I'm just a young girl and originally couldn't care so much. At least Su Jiejia is the person closest to me and must protect you well. So when I discovered that you secretly ran out to do something today, I was very worried, because I could guess what you wanted to do, because we were preparing to do something bad. If we did something bad, it would be easy for others to find out. If we were found out, perhaps everything would be over. So, in order to protect this secret, we were forced to harm some innocent people. Su Jiejia, you didn't even dare to kill a chicken in the past, but now you want to kill someone for me." Her voice became lower and lower. "And killing people, there are risks. If I was caught, or injured, or even, then what's the point of everything that I've done? If something happens to you, then I'll really be alone. Then I really don't know what I'm living for." Su Qingwan's heart ached. Just as she was about to get up and hug the young lady desperately, the girl held her down first and said softly, "Sister, you must want to hug me and comfort me, as usual. You've always been protecting me. But I also want to protect you, so this time, really don't comfort me anymore. I'm afraid that I'll cry. I'm afraid that I won't be able to harden my heart. I'm not afraid that you'll laugh at me. Over the years, I've done some things and thought that I could already protect you, but today, sitting in your room, walking back and forth worriedly, hoping that you'll come back, that helpless feeling once again tells me that I'm so powerless. I still have to be protected by you. In order to protect me, you have to kill people. Even though I boast that I'm smart and resourceful, I'm actually still the same as before." Su Qingwan and the young lady grew up together and were already very familiar with each other. Hearing the young lady's tone and words, she seemed to have noticed something. "Miss, what do you want to do?" "I just feel that power is so wonderful," she said in a daze. "It's not power, wealth, or family background, but the real power in your hands. With it, you can kill whoever you want. With it, even an ordinary martial artist can become a dragon among men and become a dragon among men. With it." A trace of uneasiness appeared in Su Qingwan's heart. She said, "Miss, your body is weak, and you've missed the best age to practice martial arts. You're no longer suitable for practicing martial arts. Yes, but the power in this world is not only martial arts. In this world, there are many mysterious powers that we don't know, and there are truths that we don't know." In the darkness, where Su Qingwan could not see, the young lady showed a strange smile. As long as I respond to it, Su Qingwan felt that something was wrong. This time, there was a trace of genuine qi in her voice. "Miss." The girl was instantly awakened and then asked in surprise, "What's wrong?" Su Qingwan directly sat up and turned the young lady's body over. She said seriously, "Miss, did you secretly look at that thing behind my back? My will and divine sense tell me that that thing is full of strangeness and extremely evil. Moreover, it's the goods that those people want. How can a thing that's such a huge figure wants be an ordinary thing? This is a hot potato. We should get the last word from Qinyu as soon as possible." Before she finished her words, she found that the young lady opposite her widened her eyes as if she was stunned and stared at her motionlessly. Butler Su suddenly woke up. Then, like a rusty robot, he lowered his head bit by bit. Then, she saw that she had buttoned up 2 buttons incorrectly, revealing most of her snowy skin. She saw that her underwear was half worn, and she saw large patches of exposed skin. She smelled that faint fragrance that could not be described in detail. Simply put, it was just like, this. She lost the ability to speak at this moment. This is all a mistake, a misunderstanding. The young lady blinked her eyes, jumped up like a frightened rabbit, and took 2 steps back. Her eyes flickered, and her face was bright red. The girl waved her hands and stammered, "So, sister is doing this kind of thing. It's okay, sister is also at this age." Moreover, I read in the book that after a fierce battle, the desire of martial artists will generally be very strong, so this kind of thing is really not strange at all. Occasionally, I will also, nothing. Anyway, I'm sorry to disturb sister. I'll go back to sleep first. If there's anything, we could talk about it tomorrow. That's all. She spoke faster and faster, like a machine gun blasting out the above lines, and then quickly rushed out of the door, leaving the petrified Su Qingwan behind. She helplessly stretched out her hand, as if she was asking her to stay, as if she wanted to explain. A moment later, the muffled sound of her head hitting the headboard rang out continuously. Then, Su Qingwan roared in a low voice as if she had gone crazy. That guy, I will definitely not let you off." And at this very moment, the person Butler Su was thinking about while gnashing his teeth was wearing a gas mask. He looked at the man in embroidered clothes who was tied to a chair and slowly woke up. He laughed deeply. The quality of this newcomer isn't bad. Hey, do you want to F** King understand the meaning of life? Do you F** King want to live? Chapter 49. The man in the brocade robe woke up from his coma. He was at a loss for a few seconds, but the training he had undergone allowed him to quickly understand his current situation. He remembered that he was suddenly knocked unconscious by an unreasonable person's punches. The rough moves, the unorganized punches, and the strange cries of Oil Root. He was actually knocked unconscious just like that. No matter how strange this matter was, there was no need to think about it now. He was already a prisoner. The only thing he could do now was to figure out the current situation, then find a way to protect himself and wait for an opportunity to escape. Thinking of this, he deliberately pretended to be in a daze and looked around blankly. He wanted to seize the time to observe the surrounding environment and the number of people as soon as possible. But the next moment, a warm and cheerful voice sounded. "Hey, my friend, you're awake? But you look very confused. Do you feel drowned and don't know what to do? Come, take a breath. You need this to wake you up." He took out a small iron can, very enthusiastically handed it to him, and then slightly opened the iron seal. F***CK. In an instant, the man in the brocade robe opened his eyes wide, and his expression became extremely ferocious. An indescribable smell rushed into his nostrils and then rushed to his brain, polluting his brain. He dared to swear that the smelliest toilet he had ever squatted in his life was not as smelly as this. No wonder the man in front of him wore such a strange mask. He immediately held his breath and desperately looked back, because he found that the man's eyes seemed to be condensing the obvious malice of, if you don't wake up, just pour it directly into his mouth. Seeing that the man was completely awake, Sun Lang satisfactorily took back the small can and turned to Zhang Yinluo and gave a thumbs up. "You see, refreshing the mind, endless wonderful uses." The female arrestor rolled her eyes. She was also wearing a gas mask and said in a low, muffled voice, "Stop fooling around. Get to work." The iron can that seemed to contain 1,000 years old feces was closed. The man in the brocade robe looked as if he had dodged a disaster. He took in big mouthfuls of fresh air and kept swallowing, a trace of fear flashing in his eyes. Sun Lang looked at him and smiled enthusiastically. "Hey, brother, what's wrong with you? Do you feel like there's something in your throat that you can't cough out or swallow? Come. Here's the best medicinal cuisine in the universe. Drink 2 cups first. It's guaranteed to expel the toxins and make your body feel relaxed." Then he took out another small jar and prepared to pour it into the man's mouth. Come. Open your mouth and repeat after me. You can vomit, your breasts will explode. Stop. How could the other party be willing to drink? He struggled to raise his head and shouted at the top of his lungs, I know who you are. I know what you're up to. Eh. Sun Lang took back the universe treasure drink and looked back at Zhang Yinluo. Then, he said with a smile, It seems that you're a sensible person. Then, you should know why we're here, right? Moreover, you seem to lack some fighting experience. You know Zhang Jianyuan from the embroidery hall, right? He's so much more powerful than you. He doesn't even dare to look at our faces for fear of being killed by us. Unlike you, who directly says that you know us. Aren't you courting death? The man glared at Sun Lang and then at Zhang Yinluo. Kill me? I'm afraid that you can't bear the consequences of killing me. Little girl over there, you must be the meddlesome constable, the beloved daughter of the Zhang family in Mingzhou. You've meddled in something that you shouldn't meddle in. The complexity of this matter is beyond your imagination. I suggest that you release me quickly and get out of this matter so that your family won't be implicated. My mission is of great importance. I've come to the Mingzhou province to investigate a major secret from the War of the Heavens Origin sector. It involves a lot of people. Too many big shots in the capital are paying attention to it in secret. If you ruin the plan because of your naivety, even your family will be obliterated in an instant. As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly shivered, as if he had been stared at by the most terrifying predator in a world of ice and snow. Boundless fear and coldness hit him in an instant. However, this feeling came and went quickly. It was almost like an illusion, which made him feel a little strange. At this moment, he suddenly found that the man in front of him, the meddlesome paladin, suddenly showed a kind smile. He turned his head and asked, Are you afraid? Zhang Yinluo hesitated for a moment and gritted his teeth. There's resentment in his eyes. If we release him, he will definitely take revenge. There's no difference. Moreover, he spoke rudely to Steward Su and coveted that young lady. He even wanted to humiliate Qinyu. He must be an evil and lecherous man. He was easily knocked out by us and brought out. There's nothing we can do about it. He must be an incompetent and greedy person. How can such a person be worthy of such an important mission? Most likely, he's just bragging. Since the matter has already been done, then we can't care so much. The Zhang family in the capital is not without a backer. We also have the support of our sect. I'd like to see who dares to touch us. Sun Lang nodded and said, Good. You're becoming more and more sensible. Don't worry, this matter is also part of the mission. I'll definitely solve it for you beautifully. He rubbed his hands and smiled. Then let's enter the 18 forbidden part. You just said one thing right. This guy is indeed an evil and lecherous man. Damn, his brain is filled with thoughts of mating. It's really hard to understand. What's the point of that kind of thing? Is it so satisfying to sleep with a girl? Well, since that's the case. Zhang Yinluo looked at Sun Lang vigilantly. What kind of trick are you going to play? Generally speaking, the more the enemy is afraid of what I do, the more I want to do it. Sun Lang smiled and said, Since he likes the girl so much, then I'll chop off his tools bit by bit. What do you say? The female arrester's pretty face turned red. You want to give in that place? The paladin smiled and nodded. Why? Does Lord Zhang want to observe my knife skills? Who wants to see that kind of thing? Really, you're not particular at all. Zhang Yinluo took 2 steps back and turned to leave. I'll wait outside. Move quickly and don't make too much noise, understand? After Zhang Yinluo ran out of the room and closed the door, the brocade-robed man's eyes were filled with shock and anger. He really couldn't imagine that there would be such a reckless person in this world. When Sun Lang looked at him with a smile that wasn't a smile, he struggled with all his might, causing the chair under him to vibrate continuously. However, the internal energy in his body had already been sealed, and the rope tied him up quite well. The strength he could use at this time was not much stronger than an ordinary strongman. Well, the hindrances left. We can get straight to the point. Unexpectedly, the other party didn't take out anything terrible or do anything terrible. He directly moved a chair and placed it in front of him. Then, he leaned his chest against the back of the chair and straddled it. He supported his chin with his hands and stared straight at the man. Friend, let's make it simple. I ask, you answer. First question, what's your name? The man's eyes flashed with ridicule, and he snorted disdainfully. Sun Lang didn't say anything and punched him in the face. In an instant, the man felt that his face didn't belong to him anymore. The pain came not only from the impact of the fist, but also from thousands of small knives cutting his face, causing his skin to split open and blood to flow. He wanted to scream, but the muscles on his face were almost out of control. His throat didn't seem to belong to him anymore, and he could only make ho-ho-ho sounds. He felt a hand pressing on his face, pulling it to the side and shaking it gently. His mouth involuntarily opened, and the wax pill hidden in his mouth fell out and fell to the ground. Not creative at all, Sun Lang patted the man's face, and his tone didn't change. First question, what's your name? His voice seemed to have a mysterious power to soothe the pain. Hearing his words, the lingering pain quickly disappeared, but the remaining pain and fear still reminded the man of the current situation. The anti-torture training he had received before, the inhuman pain he had just experienced, persistence and submission, keeping silent and speaking. These two thoughts were entangled in his mind, making the man in brocade hesitant. But Sun Lang didn't give him a chance to hesitate. He raised a finger and poked at the meridians in the man's right shoulder. The violent sword energy broke into the meridians, wantonly destroying and colliding. For martial artists who relied on their meridians to absorb the chi of heaven and earth and refine chi into spirit, the pain was secondary. The gradual destruction of the meridians was the ultimate torture. This meant that they would lose their strength and fall from the clouds to the earth. He raised his neck in pain, his veins bursting, his teeth grinding, and his hands trembling nonstop. His eyes flashed with determination, and he slowly closed his 5 fingers, preparing to activate another suicide mechanism. But the temperamental man in front of him seemed to have a pair of eyes that could predict the future. He had already taken off the ring on his right hand, flicked out the poison needle inside, waved it in front of him, and then casually threw it into a corner. It's been 2 years, and you still haven't made any progress. In his ears, the voice that was no different from the whispers of a demon faintly sounded. First question, what's your name? He sighed in his heart, but this time he didn't hesitate and hissed. Gong. Gong Chun. Gong Gong Chun, is it? What AF asterisk king name? Sun Lang nodded and didn't hit him, looking at the desperate and frightened man in front of him. He spoke peacefully, but the chilling, killing intent slowly surged up like a cold wind from hell. Second question, you were ordered by the big shots in the capital to investigate the old affairs of Tianyuan and explore a great secret in Mingzhou. Can you tell me what it is? Chapter 50. This time, the brocade-robed man refused to speak no matter what, because it was not a secret that could be casually revealed like a name. 2 kinds of fears intertwined and clashed in his heart. A look of despair appeared on his face as he looked at Sun Lang with pleading eyes. At this moment, the most difficult thing was undoubtedly to make a choice. Whether he spoke or not, he was unable to bear the consequences. Understand, Brother Gong Gong Chun, I understand very well. If you could talk about this so casually, I wouldn't have tied you to this chair. To his surprise, the demonic man opposite him did not immediately kill him. Instead, he patted his shoulder kindly. But the more he acted like this, the more afraid Gong Chun was. This was because he did not know what kind of tyrannical power was hidden under the seemingly calm appearance of the man. He did not know what kind of treatment he would receive next. Every time the man patted his shoulder, Gong Chun's body trembled as if he had been electrocuted. Perhaps the next pat would bring endless pain and torment. However, the other party was still talking to him slowly. Eunuch Chunner, I think that the wisdom and potential of human beings is limitless. This is most directly reflected in 2 situations. First, when a person's life is hanging by a thread. Second, when a person wants another person's life to be hanging by a thread, but he can't die even if he begs for it. In the former situation, human beings may erupt with shocking potential, and in the latter situation, the evil in people's hearts will be infinitely magnified. I've seen too many of these, whether it is the East or the West. If you don't see it with your own eyes, you won't know how twisted and perverted a person can become. War has turned us all into ghosts, slowly warping our humanity and turning our morals into a joke. I've seen countless torture experts. I've seen countless cruel tortures. The most difficult situations will often give birth to the cruelest man-killer fiends, and the only outcome of a madman is death. He patted Gong Chun's shoulder and sighed. This is one of the most important lessons that war has taught me. No matter what, do not lose your humanity. The consequences of not being a human are very serious, unless you're a loser. This is very difficult. You know, veterans who retire from the battlefield will always have some psychological problems. I try not to remember the past. I try not to become like that. Sun Lang slowly pressed Gong Chun's head and said softly, "So you better cooperate, do you understand?" The girl outside is still waiting. In order not to scare her young heart, I have decided to be merciful and not use those two cruel methods. Gong Chun was slightly relieved, but the next moment, he felt as if he had fallen into an ice cave. He was almost scared out of his wits. The 5 fingers pressing on his head suddenly exerted force, and Gong Chun felt a splitting headache. His brain buzzed, and countless bizarre colors appeared in front of his eyes. But no matter what illusion appeared in front of his eyes, Sun Lang's eyes looking at him had been deeply engraved in his soul. That pair of calm eyes suddenly emitted a fierce, murderous intent, and a blood-red color that made people's hearts palpitate appeared in their depths. It made people feel as if their souls had been sucked into an azura killing field that was overflowing with blood and fire. Sun Lang's tone was still calm, but every word was like a sharp sword, directly piercing into Gong Chun's soul, making him involuntarily frightened. "I don't care who you are. I just want you to open your mouth and tell me, what are you looking for, and who sent you to find it? I have no interest in turning you, and I don't have any bargaining chips to turn you, but I have some skills that I have learned in my long career in the battlefield. They can make you suffer, make you regret, and make you despair. I also have a cold and ruthless heart. Without hesitation and pity, I can let you suffer the cruelest fate in the world. If you are greedy and lustful, I will castrate you. If you're proud of your identity as a warrior, I will destroy your martial arts, cut your tendons, and make you no different from a disabled person. If you have a decent job, serve a big force, and enjoy a life of luxury, then I will throw you on the street to accompany the beggars. Generally speaking, I will let my enemies face what they are afraid of. It has always been like this." He grabbed Gong Chun's head and calmly said, "And all of this can be avoided, as long as you tell me the answer I want." The bloody light and brutality in the ranger's eyes were so strong that it made people's hearts palpitate. His hands were even trembling a little, trembling because of excitement and fury. He was searching for the answer, because at the end of the answer, there might be something he could never forget in his life, or it might be the hatred that had lasted for 8 years, or it might be the fate that no one could escape. With a low roar, his 5 fingers pressed down on Gong Chun's divine spirit, lifting him up along with the chair. He roared, "Speak! Who are you looking for?" That roar was like the most terrible thunder in the world, shaking Gong Chun's ears and awakening the most primitive fear in his heart. He instantly collapsed and shouted, "Magic weapon! The higher-ups sent me to find the magic weapon." Tom stopped at that moment. Everything seemed to be still. The tyrannical killing intent dissipated, and the terror that lingered in the soul dissipated like a tide. Instead, it was replaced by a voice full of doubt and surprise. "Huh." Then the ranger silently let go of his hand, and with a bang, Gong Chun fell to the ground with the chair. A moment later, Sun Lang silently took a step forward and punched again, sending Gong Chunlian and her chair flying for 5 or 6 meters. The man in brocade clothes was beaten until he was dizzy, but it was only physical pain. The torture of the sword chi had yet to come. This punch was not so much an extortion, but rather a venting of anger. He struggled and protested. I've already said it. Why did you hit me again? I'm hitting idiots like you who use chicken feathers as arrows. Sun Lang went up and kicked him a few times. Mother asterisk her, what's a small character like you trying to show off for? You blew up an F-rank errand mission into an SS-rank, large-scale, epic mission. You made me happy for nothing. Damn it. Damn it. If you want to pick up trash, just pick up trash. Why did you make such a big fuss? Zhang Yinluo knocked on the door outside. Hey, what's wrong? I just heard the sound of a chair falling to the ground. Did you hit someone again? Gong Chun was stunned at first, and the look in his eyes when he looked at Sun Lang became incomparably frightened. The murderous aura was so strong that it almost made a martial artist like him break down and lose control of himself. And the other party was extorting a confession and roaring, but to the woman outside, it was just the sound of a chair falling to the ground. Sun Lang kicked him again and said, It's okay. I got the answer. Come in. Zhang Yinluo pushed the door open and first looked at Gong Chun, who was lying on the ground and crying in a low voice. He did not have any injuries, and then looked around. There was no blood, no strange liquid, and no smell. She breathed a sigh of relief and walked in. Sun Lang said unhappily, What's with the look in your eyes? There's no blood. Are you unhappy? I knew it. Although you have a sharp tongue, you do things with a sense of propriety, so I didn't stop you at that time. Instead, I went out and waited. Zhang Yinluo said with a smile. Sure enough, I didn't trust the wrong person. He didn't lose any arms or legs, and there's no strange smell on him. It seems that he didn't receive any excessive treatment. That's right. Even if you want to interrogate, you can't just torture. Gong Chun opened his mouth and then silently turned his head to the side. Zhang Yinluo said, What did you get? Sun Lang snorted unhappily. After all this fuss, you're just here to pick up trash. Trash? What trash? The ranger spread out his hands. Magic equipment. What's a magic equipment? Hey. Zhang Yinluo was shocked, and her eyes widened. Which magic equipment are you talking about? Magic equipment, as the name suggests, is the equipment used by demons. Haven't you heard of it? Sun Lang said calmly. A foreign invading race left, lost, and destroyed all kinds of equipment in the Divine Land during the war. Because the Empire named their race the extraterrestrial sky demon, the things they left behind are collectively called magic equipment. This race was the protagonist of the two wars of Heaven's origin. The first time, they almost wiped out the entire human civilization, and the second time, they plunged the world into the flames of war that lasted for decades. In addition, their appearance completely changed the direction of human civilization. The 5 most powerful countries in the world have completely different scientific and technological directions and military forces. The essence and source of their development are the reverse analysis of the legacy left by the invaders after the first war of Heaven's origin. Because of this, human beings gained the power to win the second war of Heaven's origin. In this race, the Empire called them the extraterrestrial sky demon. Westerners have different names for them, such as demons, spirits. Sun Lang turned his head and said calmly, and I'm used to calling them aliens. Chapter 51. Sun Lang's casual words were like thunder in Zhang Yinluo's ears. Even though she was the apple of the Zhang family's eye, and even though she was a disciple of the Vulture Spirit Palace, these things that came out of the mouth of the ranger were secrets that she almost couldn't get in touch with. She could only get in touch with these terrible truths in casual conversations between her family and the elders of her sect. However, even the secrets that she heard in bits and pieces were enough to prove that Sun Lang's words were not lies. For example, the Imperial Army seemed to have existed for countless years, as if it had existed since the founding of the Empire. It was as if it was a national treasure that God had bestowed upon the Empire. Warriors practiced martial arts, practiced Qi, and then participated in the military selections. They overcame all obstacles, entered the throne room test, and received the Imperial Army. From then on, they obtained extraordinary strength and became dragons among men. This was the path of promotion that warriors had been accustomed to for thousands of years. They rose to the top and brought glory to their ancestors. The imperial army and the military selections, glory and future, these had been imprinted in the blood of every empire citizen. However, no one knew where the imperial army came from and why it appeared in this world. It was the empire. The empire deliberately sanctified the imperial army. The empire deliberately hid the secrets and origins of the imperial army. The empire deliberately downplayed all of these. In addition, Zhang Yinluo once traveled abroad. She saw new things that she had never seen before in the past 10 years of her life. The invincible firearms of the divine power of the Flame Kingdom, the combat equipment of the Seraphim series, and all kinds of magical weapons that the combat cultivators were equipped with. Thermite rifles that shot out metal fire rain, white phosphorus grenades that were as terrifying as the true Samadhi fire, and all kinds of army-level heavy firearms that this country was proud of. Then she heard that in this world, other than the Empire, there were 3 other countries that were as powerful as the Live Fire Kingdom. The Hutu Empire had dominated the world with its imperial army for hundreds of years. The firearms of the divine power of the Flame Kingdom were unparalleled in the world. The other 3 countries also had great strength that they were proud of. They stood side by side with the first 2 countries. At that time, Zhang Yinluo finally understood why the names of the 4 countries could be listed on the mountain and river screen in the Heroes' Assembly Palace. They were given the names of the 5 elements and stood side by side with the empire. The origin of the imperial army, the secrets of these countries' prosperity, could it be? Its body was perfect and tinsel, and it had infinite strength. Its armor was made of the toughest metal and could hardly be hurt by swords. The gun in its left hand could launch unstoppable flames. The sword in its right hand could cut through all heavy shields. Its eyes were even more dangerous and unpredictable. They could control people's minds and summon lightning to help it in battle. The kingdom of mystic water took its head. The kingdom of metal took off its armor. The kingdom of greenwood took the rest of its body. The Live Fire Kingdom took the gun in its left hand, and the Hutu Empire took its sword. Sun Lang said slowly. Then the world began to change. The progress of civilization that had been following the rules for 1,000 years was interfered with unexpectedly. Everything changed. The ranger saw through her thoughts and said something that was not very straightforward but sounded like a ballad. Then he said slowly, "How about it? Do you want to hear the story in detail?" Zhang Yinluo's face was pale. She shook her head hard, her heart full of surprise and confusion. She asked in a low voice, How did you know those things?" Sun Lang said calmly, 30% curiosity, 30% naughtiness, 30% boredom, and 91% desire for vengeance. It took me some time to collect some black materials. Regardless of whether it is me, those who have harmed me, those who have used me, or those whom I hate, I want everyone to die with a clear understanding of why they died. Zhang Yinluo swallowed and said in a low voice, "You shouldn't have told me such a secret." Then she turned around and looked at Gong Chun, who was sweating profusely and almost passed out. Sensing the eyes of the female arrestor, Gong Chun immediately shouted at the top of his voice, "I don't know anything. I didn't hear anything. I don't want to know anything. Don't be scared. When you are strong enough, some secrets are no longer secrets." Sun Lang said indifferently, "Since you don't want to hear it, then let's go back to the matter of the magic weapon." Looking at his calm expression and indifferent gaze, for some reason, Zhang Yinluo suddenly felt the loneliness in his heart. She couldn't help but say, "You suddenly telling me these things. Who will be able to stand it? Even Master doesn't want to talk about these things. Anyone who hears it would want to bury these secrets in their hearts, not daring to let others know a single thing. Yet, you're saying it all out like it's free." Sun Lang's eyes showed a gentle light. He said softly, "Because I believe in you." Zhang Yinluo let out a nah. Her face turned red, like a frightened rabbit. She took 2 steps back and stammered, "What are you talking about?" "Nonsense." If you say such strange things again, as if. You're such a brainless idiot with big breasts. You're so gullible. Who would tell you the real secret? You'll be tricked by others with just a few words. Don't believe me? If you don't believe me, then look at your silly face. I just want to see you panicking when you suddenly hear a very dangerous secret. Ha! As expected, the room was once again subjected to a storm of swords. Zhang Yinluo didn't know how many times she slashed, but she still couldn't hit Sun Lang. She stared fiercely at Sun Lang. So, this person's organization is secretly collecting magic weapons? I recall that the Imperial Court strictly forbids the private collection of demonic artifacts. However, if one reports to the Imperial Court and obtains permission, they can still be kept as collectibles and souvenirs. Spirit Vulture Palace has some, and so does my family. Even if it's a piece of junk, it's divided into scraps that can still be used, scraps that can barely be repaired, scraps that can be used for other purposes after dismantling, and scraps that have no use at all. Sun Lang snorted. If your sect has magic weapons, it's usually a piece of junk that has no use at all. The Imperial Court has no use for it, so it's better to give it to them as a favor. Zhang Yinluo rolled her eyes. Junk? Do you know how much my grandfather treasures those things? Do you know how much a piece of junk is worth? Country bumpkin, Sun Lang said disdainfully. Things that have been corroded and have lost any use, no matter how beautiful they are still junk. Maybe the artwork at your grandfather's bedside was a landmine a few years ago. If it wasn't a piece of junk, wouldn't your grandfather be happy? The so-called magic weapons left in the Divine Land today are all things left behind by the Sky Demon in the outer region. Some of them are civilian products, and some are military products. They contain mysterious power that humans can't understand. For humans, they can only be used as reference, but can't be fully inherited because they are on two different lines of technology, just like how fish can never understand the flying skills of birds. He shrugged. Moreover, the key problem is that the Sky Demon in the outer region seems to be unable to adapt to the environment in the Divine Land. So their magic weapons full of mysterious power will quickly corrode and decay in the Divine Land, lose their original functions, and become worthless junk. After all, there are too many differences between the two worlds, so this is not surprising. Therefore, most of the magic weapons left behind by the Sky Demon in the outer region will eventually become worthless junk, but a small part of them barely retains some mysterious characteristics. And this small part of them still maintains some functions, and this small part of them barely maintains their original functions. Sun Lang said with a smile. The Imperial Court strictly prohibits civilians from possessing magic weapons, but this part of them is prohibited. In the Imperial Court, privately possessing magic weapons is the most serious crime, just like the crime of spying on the Imperial Army. It's the same in every country. They all take all the magic weapons that more or less maintain their original functions into their country's possession. I don't need to say more about what they're used for, right? But their organization probably doesn't take orders from the country, or rather, they don't take orders directly from the Imperial Court. Zhang Yinluo glanced at Gong Chun. But they're privately collecting magic weapons. What do they want to do? Sun Lang lowered his eyes, quietly suppressing the murderous intent in his eyes. He said slowly, "What does it have to do with me?" Chapter 52. The atmosphere in the deserted room was rather heavy. Gong Chun was uneasy about his fate. Zhang Yinluo sensed the crux of the problem. Sun Lang's eyes were changing rapidly, and there was no telling what was on his mind. Eventually, the ranger broke the silence and put the matter on the table. "How is it?" Sun Lang smiled. "The case is clear now, but it has completely changed. It has changed from a criminal case of obstructing the execution of official duties and robbing suspects to a shocking case of illegal collection and smuggling of magic weapons. This fellow is clearly not working for the Imperial Court. His master must be someone who holds sway in the Empire, and this must be a power struggle at the level of the Imperial Court. Some important person is secretly collecting magic tools on a large scale. and this fellow is just a pawn. While Brighton is the capital of a province, it is an important city at the border during wartime. It has been sifted through by the Imperial Security Department and other departments over the past 2 years, and it would be difficult to find any major discoveries. That is why they sent this weak-willed and incompetent piece of trash to make up for the occasion. And there must be people who are more elite than him going to various places to secretly collect magic tools. Am I right? Gong Gongchun nodded quickly. He had been scared out of his wits by Sun Lang. At this moment, he was both frightened and curious. He had never heard of such a terrifying man before. Judging from his words, he seemed to be a veteran of the Heaven's Origin sector, and he was so familiar with the secrets of the Imperium. Considering all the factors, he must have been in a high position in the army back then. However, no matter how hard he tried to recall the list of heroes of the Heaven's Origin sector, none of them could match the man before his eyes. Who was he exactly? So, Sun Lang looked at Zhang Yinluo, whose face was slightly pale, and smiled gently. Girl, you seem to be in big trouble. The female arrestor was still too young, and this was the first time she was involved in such a serious matter. Her body was trembling slightly. Sure enough, the worst had happened. No, it was worse than she had imagined. This was not a simple kidnapping, nor was it a crime committed by a wealthy family. This involved a political confrontation, a struggle between several forces that could influence the imperial court. In the face of such a huge force, her own family was not worth mentioning. Even her sex that transcended the secular world would be overshadowed. She had actually provoked such trouble for her family. When she thought about how she had gotten herself into such a huge mess, she felt as if the world was spinning around her. Panic, fear, doubt, and a little bit of unwillingness. This is all my fault. Did I really do anything wrong? Should I not care about Qin Yu's life and death? Is it because I shouldn't have pursued this matter? However, they were clearly the ones who were in the wrong. They were the ones who kidnapped Qin Yu, and they were also the ones who disregarded the Empire's laws to smuggle the magic weapons. Why would I, who was investigating this matter, implicate my family? If it was any other time, I would have taken the opportunity to play with you until you broke. But now I can't bear to do that. So, consider yourself lucky. Sun Lang looked at Zhang Yinluo, whose eyes were gradually becoming blank. He shook his head slightly and said with a smile, What's wrong? Do you regret it? His call had awakened Zhang Yinluo. The female arrestor looked at him, tears rolling down her face. With a sobbing tone, she shouted, What kind of situation is this? How can you still laugh? If something happens, you can't escape. Sun Lang smiled and spread out his hands. It's not like there's no way to solve this matter. Why should I panic? Zhang Yinluo was stunned at first. Then her eyes widened in disbelief, like a person who had seen a glimmer of hope in a desperate situation. She rushed up, grabbed Sun Lang's arms, and said excitedly, Really? The tears in the corner of her eyes, the eyes that seemed to be shining, the delicate face, the moist lips, the full breasts, and the delicate fragrance of a young girl. Sun Lang's face immediately showed a mixture of joy and sadness. Oh my God, this girl is becoming more and more pleasing to the eye, and God damn it, how long has it been since I've been held and relied on by a beautiful girl so purely? But, calm down, he told himself in his heart. Food must be eaten one bite at a time. The road must be taken one step at a time, and the girl must be trained bit by bit. Don't be anxious. Don't be anxious. He put his hands on the girl's shoulders, and with an unprecedentedly serious expression and magnetic voice, he gave the confused girl a sense of security. He took advantage of the chaos to make her feel better. First of all, calm down. You're still too young. This matter is not as bad as you think. First of all, your family's business is big, and your sect is not just for show. No matter how much power the other party has, no matter how strong he is, he can't quietly destroy your family. Young girl, you should have heard of politics, right? Politics is actually two or more forces holding each other back and tearing each other apart. No matter how strong the other party is, there will definitely be opponents and enemies. Looking at Zhang Yinluo slowly calming down, Sun Lang continued. Moreover, he is smuggling magic equipment, which is a serious crime strictly prohibited by the Empire. If this is exposed, even if he is one of the 3 chancellors and 9 ministers, he will definitely be slapped in the face. His enemies will definitely gang up on him, so he won't dare to take such a big risk to take revenge and deal with you. Zhang Yinluo further calmed down. At this moment, she was obviously in a panic, and she regarded Sun Lang as the most reliable person and the strongest hope. She did not realize that she had been tricked. Even she did not realize that her words and tone at this time were full of helplessness and dependence. But he will definitely still remember my family, and then wait for the opportunity to punish us. And this matter is still not solved. Don't be afraid, don't be afraid. Have you forgotten what I told you again? Since I have taken your reward, I will help you solve this matter. No matter who the enemy is, if you don't retreat, I won't retreat. Sun Lang gently patted the girl's cheeks, which were as soft as cream. He smiled and said, "It's not difficult to solve this matter. Since the Zhang family can't take responsibility for this matter, we can find someone who can take the blame." Zhang Yinluo obviously did not care about this slightly intimate action and asked pitifully, "Who?" Sun Lang's smile was very pure and natural. "Of course it's Hu Shouxin." "Leader who?" Zhang Yinluo was stunned for a moment, and then shook her head. "No, how can he be willing to do such a thing? Moreover, he is very good to you. Don't drag him down, don't underestimate him. Maybe he can't even wait to be happy." Sun Lang smiled. Old Hu retired from the Tianyuan War. After these dead Xiao Ba and the old foxes became famous and were conferred the title of Marquis, they also set up their own mountain in the imperial court. They formed their own faction and went on a rampage. If we send this black material to them, it will most likely become their ammunition. I'll bring Gong Gong Shun to talk to Old Hu. Tomorrow, we'll go find that young lady and Butler Su to have a showdown and save Chinyu. Let Old Hu take over the rest, including the enmity behind it. They still have the ability to do this. But, Zhang Yinluo glanced at Sun Lang. This matter did not sound reliable, and she did not dare to believe that Hu Shouxin would easily take over such a big matter. However, Sun Lang's eyes gave her an inexplicable sense of security and trust, making her involuntarily believe that all of this was real. She said in a low voice, "I originally thought that using the Imperial Army in exchange for your help was a stupid deal that would make a huge loss. I didn't expect that I would gain such a big advantage. The favor I owe you is getting bigger and bigger, so big that I don't even know how to repay it." Sun Lang revealed a gentle smile and said, "Take your time to repay it. It will be done eventually." Zhang Yinluo obviously did not realize the hidden meaning behind this smile. She softly nodded and said, "Are we leaving now?" "No, not us. It's me. I alone will be enough. There are some things that you won't benefit from listening to them now." Sun Lang smiled and said, "I'll send you home first, and then I'll go find Old Hu. We'll discuss the details. He also has to come up with a plan. I'll pick you up tomorrow. If you're still worried, I can bring Old Hu's keepsake over and let your family know. However, I don't think it's necessary. It's enough to fool them. There's no need to make your family panic. Then, we'll go and meet that young lady together. Tonight, you can go back to your Zhang family's house to stay. Be careful at night, just in case." Zhang Yinluo nodded repeatedly. Her attitude was unprecedentedly obedient. After Sun Lang finished speaking, he took out some miscellaneous items from his body and said, "Take this. This is the last of my canned herring. It's for self-defense. This is a cloud-piercing arrow. If you encounter any danger, use it. I'll be there soon. Don't sleep too deeply tonight. Just meditate for the night." Chapter 53. He watched as Zhang Yinluo walked toward the brightly lit gate not far away. The huge plaque of the Zhang mansion could be clearly seen. Behind the 2 stone lions in front of the gate, there were 2 flags of Jinshi and Di, respectively, indicating that in the young generation of this family, there were already 4 people who had made the Great Leap and had been commissioned into the Imperial Army. With these 4 flags, The Zhang family was a first-rate noble family in Mingzhou. Even the prefecture overseer did not dare to treat them lightly. The complicated look in the girl's eyes when she said goodbye appeared in his mind. Sun Lang smiled and waved at Gong Chun beside him. Gong Chun, let's go. The man in the brocade robe corrected weakly. It's Gong Chun. Gong Chun. Oh, Gong Chun's it? Sun Lang's gentle gaze swept over his body, causing the other to shiver. His acupuncture points were not sealed, and the ropes on his body were also completely untied. His entire body was not shackled in any way. If he wanted to, he could shout out loud right now. If he wanted to, he could run right now. If he wanted to, he could attack right now. But he did not dare. He did not dare to do anything, because he knew that no matter which path he chose, the result was predestined. Everything made no difference to the man beside him. Let's go. We'll go find Hu Shouxin. He's a war hero of Tianyuan and a veteran soldier. There are plenty of people above him. Sun Lang said gently, since you've revealed the secret, I can't let you go back no matter what. If you don't want to die, do your best on Hu Shouxin's side. It's only been 2 years since they changed from the military to politics. They're probably short of people. If you do a good job, maybe we'll have a chance to meet again in the future. Should I feel happy or sad? Gong Chun did not know whether to laugh or cry. He could only smile bitterly. That's why I said that a person's fate is so unpredictable. You're a decent person. How did you end up in such a situation? Sun Lang sighed, but this matter, rather than talking about the course of history, it still depends on your own problem. You see, tonight we want to look for housekeeper Sue. If you didn't see her return at night and became lustful and called her into the room to ask her this and that, how could we have found you? Lust is like a knife hanging over a knife. Brother, I don't mean to say this, but what's so good about lust? It's a waste of time and energy. Then what about you? The one who made that arrestee so happy tonight. She thought. Gong Chun wouldn't dare to say this even if he was beaten to death. He could only continue to smile bitterly. This martial arts expert seemed to be a chatterbox. Since that was the case, he might as well listen obediently. I know a very famous man who is obsessed with his wife. His surname is Chow, and he is known as C in the underworld. Other than that, he is also a politician, a military strategist, and a poet. He once paid a heavy price for this hobby of his. Sun Lang laughed. The first time, in order to sleep with a wife, he lost his best heir and a general. The second time, in order to sleep with a pair of beautiful sisters, he directly lost 830,000 soldiers. Regarding this matter, he was very regretful. In one of his widely spread poems, he talked about the solution to the problem. Sun Lang turned around and patted Gong Chun on the shoulder, saying sincerely, he said that excessive sexual desire leads to disaster. Cut it off to cure it forever. Gong Chun shuddered and looked like he was about to cry. Master, I can't stand it. I can't stand it, he sighed and said, at this point, Master, please don't scare me anymore. I will tell you everything. Do you want to know who I work for? Stop. I'm not interested in those names. Sun Lang shook his head. It's a waste of time. If you have something to say, just say it to Hu Shouxin. You don't need to tell me anything else. Don't disturb me when I'm playing RPG games. I'll beat you to death with spoilers in advance. Gong Chun nodded quickly and then asked carefully, are you a general of the Heaven's Origin Army, too? Sun Lang looked at him with a vague smile. Yes. Do you want to know who I am? Gong Chun immediately sensed great danger from a smile. He shook his head abruptly. I was too talkative. The ranger shook his head and turned around to leave. Gong Chun quickly followed him. The two of them walked in the cold night of Mingzhou City. It was already late. The tourists in the night market had returned home in 2s and 3s. Most of them had already fallen asleep. They wandered around and came to the neighborhood of a house. Sun Lang looked around and nodded. This should be the place. He put his hands around his mouth and called in a low voice, Hu Shouxin, General Hu, Stick Hu, Rash Hu. After calling a few times and waiting for a while, Gong Chun heard hurried footsteps from inside. It seemed that he and Hu Shouxin were close friends. They were sworn brothers in the army. But where could there be such a person among the heroes of the Heaven's Origin Army who were close to Hushoshin? He thought a few names, but soon eliminated them all. None of them matched. While he was thinking, the door was suddenly pulled open. Gongchun raised her head and was shocked. She saw a burly man holding a large glaive rushing out with a murderous aura. He roared in a low voice, "What a pervert! You finally can't hold it in anymore. Are you finally going to make a move on my daughter? You don't even want to wait for 10 years? Sun Lang was silent for a moment. Then he said gloomily, "Your daughter is only 4 years old. Can't you trust me a little?" Hushoshin waved his glaive fiercely and said angrily, "A wolf suddenly tells you that he is a vegetarian. Do you believe it or not? I have already asked Ms. Zhang to tell you that if you dare to come within 3 miles of my house, I will immediately chop you to death. Come, come, come. Do you want to stretch your head over? Or do you want me to go over? Hold on, hold on. Guild Chief who? General who? Hold on, hold on. Brothers, let us show you a treasure first." Seeing that Hushoshin was about to strike, Sun Lang shouted a few times. When he saw that Hushoshin had stopped, he pressed down on Gongchun's shoulder and smiled at the brocade-clothed man. "Friend, do me a favor. Come, lean your back against this wall." "Yes, stand there obediently." Gongchun stood against the wall in confusion. He saw Sun Lang raise his fist. His eyes flashed with horror. "Hey!" But the ranger had already punched him. His fist landed on Gongchun's face, causing him to groan in pain and knock the back of his head against the wall. Then, with a muffled sound, the wall where the back of Gongchun's head came in contact with collapsed, and a hole was formed. Cracks spread out like a spider web. Sun Lang withdrew his fist and smiled at Hushoshin, who was stunned on the spot. "In other words, I, your brother, have just comprehended the supreme technique of not killing with one punch tonight." With a clang, Hushoshin casually threw the glaive in his hand to the side. His murderous big face was like spring returning to the earth and flowers blooming. He showed a hearty smile and opened his arms. He said repeatedly, "Oh, isn't this my best friend? Welcome, welcome. It is really a sin for not going out to greet you. Come, let us have a long-awaited hug." Sun Lang greeted him with a smile. "Ah, Hushoshin, my friend. I am so king happy to see you." He laughed heartily, raised his hands, and patted Hushoshin's shoulders enthusiastically. "Long time no see. You are still so healthy and strong." With a loud bang, gravel flew everywhere, and Hushoshin suddenly became shorter. Big Stick, whose expression froze on his face. He slowly lowered his head and found that his feet had sunk deeply into the ground. When he raised his head again, he found that Sun Lang still had a hearty smile on his face. Sun Lang once again raised his hands enthusiastically and patted him hard on the shoulder. "I'm very gratified." Gongchun grimaced as she rubbed her face. She looked at Hushoshin, who was continuously smacked into the ground by the excited Sun Lang. She thought of the two people's hypocritical performance and hypocritical change in expression just now. She was stunned for a moment and then secretly spat. These two bitches. Chapter 54. Hushoshin pulled himself out of the ground with a gloomy face. He patted the dirt off his body and glanced at Sun Lang angrily. He went home to get a shovel and a broom. He threw the shovel to Sun Lang and began to sweep the gravel and mud in front of the door. "Shovel some dirt for me and make sure the ground is tidy. Don't let the passers-by step on it." "Little bastard." Sun Lang took the shovel and threw it to Gongchun. "Get to work." Gongchun obediently agreed. He had obviously never done this kind of heavy work before and was a little unfamiliar with it. However, he was still a martial artist and knew a thing or two about the crescent moon shovel technique. He shoveled a large piece of soil from the roadside flower bed and cautiously walked over to Hushoshin's side, waiting for the other's instructions. "Just pour it inside." Hushoshin swept the gravel to the side of the wall and asked, "Brother, what is your background? How did you get involved with this guy?" "I don't want to either." Gongchun's heart was filled with unspeakable bitterness. He glanced at Sun Lang, not knowing where to begin. Thus, the ranger kindly said, The mastermind behind Qin Yu's incident was tasked with collecting magic artifacts. Hu Shouxin abruptly raised his head. His sharp gaze instantly caused Gong Chun's skin to feel numb, as if he had been swept by lightning. He couldn't help but think of the other party's famous monarch weapon, the formation-breaking thunder bow, thunderclap string. Then the hero of Tianyuan lowered his head and swept the floor again. He said casually, "Who are you working for? Where are you from? Waterfall Internal Guards? Security Department? Night Returner? Chang'e Death Soldier?" Sun Lang said indifferently, "You can talk about this in private. Don't let me hear. It's been less than 2 years. Where did this Tom, Dick, and Harry come from?" As expected, Hu Shouxin immediately shut his mouth and continued to work. Sun Lang stood to the side with his arms crossed. He looked at the two of them from the corner of his eyes as they filled up the hole in the ground. Then they crushed the stones and flattened them repeatedly before they stopped. Hu Shouxin took the shovel from Gong Chun's hand and looked at the two of them. "Come in and sit. Bah, hypocrite." Sun Lang smiled and gave him the middle finger. "Since I came here, you've been guarding the door tightly. You can't wait for me to stay as far away from your wife and daughter as possible. If we go in, I'm afraid you'll have to hold a knife the whole time." Hu Shouxin also laughed. "Then let's find a place to sit. There's a small shop by the Song family's bridge. The wine is self-brewed, and the kidney is also cooked well." Hu Shouxin and Sun Lang naturally walked side by side. Gong Chun lagged behind. Looking at the figures of the two people, all sorts of feelings welled up in his heart. Hu Shouxin was dressed in casual clothes, while Sun Lang was dressed in a strange style of white clothes. Among the three of them, only he was dressed in a brocade robe that was extraordinarily luxurious. But he was just a lowly prisoner. He did not even need to be watched over, tied up, or shackled. As long as he had the slightest intention of escaping, it was likely that the two people in front of him could casually raise their hands and knock him to the ground. Hu Shouxin, the hero of Tianyuan, the first general to break through the enemy lines. He was brave and invincible, born with great strength. Such a famous general, yet Sun Lang was walking side by side with him. His bearing was not inferior in the slightest. They were the generals of Tianyuan, the war heroes who fought against foreign invaders in the War of Tianyuan. They were living legends. On the other hand, he was just a small character who was busy running around the mortal world, yet still boasted that he was extraordinary. He was a tool in the hands of the important people, a laughable lackey. Hu Shouxin and Sun Lang, who were walking in front, looked at each other but didn't say anything. They could naturally sense the change in Gong Chun's mood, but the two of them weren't interested in being mentors who talked about life. The former was because he had seen too much, while the latter was because it had nothing to do with him. The world was big, and the world was difficult. How many people were successful, and how many people were defeated? All the glory and shame, all the happiness and sadness, all the success and failure, were all chosen by oneself. The three of them arrived at the shop Hu Shouxin had mentioned. Hu Shouxin seemed to be a regular customer. The shopkeeper received him attentively, and soon served steaming hot fried kidney and pancakes, as well as a bottle of osmanthus wine. Gong Chun sensibly stood up and poured wine for the two. Sun Lang looked at the dishes and food on the table and felt that something was missing. He touched his waist and then said regretfully, "Ah, it's gone." Hu Shouxin took a sip of wine and asked curiously, "What's gone?" Sun Lang laughed heartily and said, "The food. A few days ago, I got some canned sea fish from the north of the western continent. The taste was quite strong. Unfortunately, I gave it away today." Hu Shouxin didn't doubt him. Mingzhou was inland. Although there were river fishes, seafood was quite scarce. Even with Hu Shouxin's identity and status, it was not easy to eat seafood. When he heard that there was seafood to eat, he couldn't help but be excited. "Do you have more?" "Later, give me a dozen cans to try." The ranger said with a serious face, "I don't have much left. Let's see if I can give you a few cans. But your wife is pregnant, and pregnant women can't eat seafood. Your daughter is young, and eating that thing is not good for her health. You should take it to Zhongyi restaurant. For lunch, you can eat pancakes with some onion, ginger, and garlic. It's quite strong. Is there such a thing? Hushoshin looked like he had learned something and nodded repeatedly. You're thoughtful. Unfortunately, my wife is pregnant and can't meet you. Sun Lang waved his hand. I don't plan to meet your family. Sigh. Hu Huisho sighed. He raised his hand and clinked his bowl with Sun Lang's. Then, he drank the wine in the bowl in one gulp and touched the corner of his mouth. But then again, my family is about to give birth. Old who doesn't know many words. Why don't you give me some advice and give my unborn child a name? Sun Lang said without hesitation. Huda. Hushoshin looked at him and said faintly, This is my eldest daughter's name. Have you forgotten? Back then, I lost a bet with you and was cheated by you. I was forced to change my daughter's name. When I went back, my family complained. It seems that there is such a thing. The ranger touched his head and vaguely remembered. He gave Hushoshin a thumbs up. Send her to the Navy in the future. She will be successful. You don't have to worry about this. Give my unborn child a normal name. Sun Lang pondered for a moment and snapped his fingers. Hui Dao. I have a feeling that he won't live long. Not good, not good. Hu Taiwa. Sounds like a hooligan. You have so many problems. Sun Lang took another sip of wine. His eyes lit up and he said with a smile, Mountains and rivers are like brocade, watching the sea and listening to the waves. What do you think of this name? Hushoshin repeated it twice and suddenly shivered. It seems very good, but I always feel that something terrible will happen if I use this name. What's wrong with the name Hu Guanhai? Sun Lang rolled his eyes. Forget it, forget it. We could talk about it slowly when the time comes. If it doesn't work, you can give him a cheap name like Good to Raise Him. He glanced at Gong Chun, who had been reduced to the background from the beginning, and said pleasantly, Are you full? Gong Chun was startled and said carefully, Yes, I'm full. I ate a lot for dinner. I'm not hungry now. Sun Lang nodded with a smile. If you are full, you can sleep for a while. He reached out his hand, pressed the back of Gong Chun's head, and slammed it hard on the table. With a muffled sound, it seemed that the ground within a few miles shook slightly. Gong Chun was naturally knocked unconscious. I can squat aside and cover my ears first. He thought resentfully before he fainted. Sun Lang picked up a piece of kidney and chewed it a few times. He pointed at Hushoshin with his chopsticks. Come, let's talk about the details of this matter. That you're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.